Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of viewers aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. It really helps keep these long stories coming. Also, for even more police horror stories, check out my new channel. The link's in the description and pinned comment. I'd love it if you stop by and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. What time is it where you are and which city are you listening from tonight? Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Officer Daniels eased the patrol SUV past the last glimmer of streetlight, tires whispering on wet asphalt. The windshield wipers thrashed in fractured rhythms, echoing the irregular stutter of his own heartbeat. He had been on duty nearly 12 hours. Nearly half of that time was spent answering calls he'd file away as no incident. But every now and then, always at the smallest hours, something broke through the routine. A voice on the radio, a light where no light should be, a footprint leading where no one belonged. Tonight felt pregnant with possibility. He glanced at the digital clock on the dash. 2:03. The dispatch log showed the call had come in 20 minutes ago. Abandoned pickup at mile marker 42, engine idling, headlights on. He keyed the mic. Unit 34 to dispatch. I'm on scene. Static answered him, then no reply. The silence was its own answer. Daniels cut the engine and stepped into the misting rain, collar turned up, flashlight in one hand, service weapon holstered but finger poised. The glow of the pickup's headlights carved two pale arcs into the gloom. The engine ticked as it cooled, each click of metal a tiny alarm bell in the darkness. He approached the driver's side. The door was unlocked. Inside, a half-empty thermos of coffee sat upright on the console, steam curling toward the cracked windshield. The radio lay face down, tuned to a station that spat static. The driver's seatbelt drooped, as if someone had set it free in a hurry. "Come on," Daniels muttered, voice low. "Where did you go?" He shone the beam across the gravel lot. Beyond the pickup, the shuttered gas station loomed. Its pump islands were deserted, paint peeling. The tall canopy stood like a sentinel, its slab ceiling pocked with water stains. Daniels flicked the switch on the station's front light. Nothing. The building remained in darkness, as if it had surrendered to the night. He stepped forward, boots sinking in gravel. At the door, he pressed his palm against the cold glass. Rain blurred his reflection. Behind the glass, monitors glowed faintly. Security cameras, one live feed illuminating part of the forecourt. The screen showed the hooded silhouette of a figure near pump 3, head ducked, shoulders hunched. Daniels instinctively reached for the door handle. Locked. He knocked, rap, 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 sharp and insistent. No answer. "Dispatch," he whispered, tapping the mic. Still no response from inside. Possible trespasser, but no sign of entry. His breath formed clouds in the beam of his flashlight. He lowered his voice. "I've got a bad feeling." He circled the building, scanning walls for damage or broken boards. Nothing. In the shallow puddles, he saw the reflection of the pickup's lights and his own silhouette, trembling. Then a faint rustle. The radio crackled to life, a loop of static and then silence. He jerked, pivoting toward the sound, adrenaline spiking. The station monitor flickered, live feed gone, then returned, but the hooded figure was gone. No footprints in the gravel, no sign of disturbance. Daniels exhaled slowly, pressing both palms to the glass as if to peer through memory rather than matter. He recalled the log. The complainant said she drove by the lot, noticed the lights on, called 911. Why drive 30 miles, start a truck, come here? He retraced his steps back to the pickup. The engine had fully died, the headlights blinked off, leaving only his flashlight. When he opened the driver's door, the thermos was cold. Inside the glove compartment, he found a crumpled receipt from a convenience store 30 minutes north. A snack purchase time-stamped at 1:11 a.m., but no phone record, no caller ID. He slipped back into the SUV and sat, doors locked. He keyed the mic again. Unit 34, I'm securing the scene. Backup, please. Request someone to check the interior once they arrive. I'm not touching anything until more eyes get here. Dispatch replied, Copy that. Unit 56 en route. ETA 8 minutes. Tick. The wipers kept time with the rain. The pickup loomed like a ghost in his headlights, engine now silent. The SUV's radio snapped on, picking up a distant transmission. Another unit asking for coffee run at the station. The voice was casual, unaware. Daniel's gut clenched. He flicked the radio off and lowered his head against the seat. He thought of the dozen calls this month about lights on in empty houses, running cars in deserted lots, voices over the radio that sounded like names he recognized. Children he once rescued from wrecks, neighbors whose locks he'd changed after break-ins. When those calls led nowhere, they became bulletins, closed files. But each left a residue, a loose thread in the night's tapestry that teased him awake hours later. Eyes forward again, he watched the lot. The rain heightened, tapping a frantic rhythm on the roof. He heard the engine of Unit 56 rumble closer, headlights slicing through the downpour. Relief flickered, then faded. In the rearview mirror, he saw headlights stop behind his cruiser, then the silhouette of an officer stepping out. The flashlight in that officer's hand passed over the pickup, then swung toward Daniel's window. He rolled it down a crack. "Everything okay?" the other officer called, tone polite but cautious. Daniels pinched the bridge of his nose. "I'll let you know once I get inside." He paused. The night felt too vast beyond the raindrops. He unbuckled and stood, the cold seeping through his uniform. His partner moved to the driver's side of the pickup, jiggled the handle. Nothing. Daniel signaled him back. They approached the station together, flashlights carving twin cones of light. The back door, metal, padlocked, was ajar. Daniels raised his weapon with a quiet click and stepped in. Inside, the fluorescent tubes hummed to life one by one, revealing aisles of empty shelves and fallen cans strewn across the floor. The faint scent of gasoline lingered, mixed with stale air. He swept the beam across the service counter, registers empty, drawers open, papers scattered. Then, in the corner by the wall of freezers, he saw it. A single footprint pressed into a slick of spilled oil, leading toward a side door marked Employees Only. His flashlight flickered. In the beam, a figure crouched by the door's hinge, too small to be a man, too large for a child. Daniel's heart pounded. He stepped forward, voice low. "Freeze. Show yourself." No answer. The figure pressed a hand to its hood, face hidden. Then it rose, turned, and fled through the door, disappearing into the night. Daniels rushed forward, but the door slammed shut behind him. He reached out, yanked it open, empty corridor, walls painted industrial gray. A faint drip echoed from somewhere ahead. He followed, each step measured, flashlight dancing. At the end of the hallway, a stairwell descended into darkness. From below came the soft whine of a generator. He called down, "Dispatch, I'm going below. Backup, on my way." No answer. He took the first step, then the second. Each breath came slower, deliberate. The generator's whine rose, then cut off. Silence. In that hush, Daniels heard it clearly, like a sound in his own mind, someone calling his name. "Daniels." He paused, weight on the stair treads. The whisper came again, closer. "Daniels." He reached for his radio, static. He stared into the stairwell's pitch-black mouth. And then, just as he braced to descend, the lights flickered, and for one heartbeat the shape of someone stood at the bottom, bathed in pale emergency lighting, hand raised in a silent wave. Then gone. He hunched back, heart pounding, flashlight shaking. He keyed the mic, voice trembling. "Dispatch. I need immediate assistance. May God help me, there's someone, or something, down here." Silence answered, his breath caught. Outside, the rain began to ease, leaving the world suspended. Officer Daniels took the first step back up, gripped the handrail and climbed the stairs 2 at a time, lungs burning and muscles screaming from the cold tension. Each step rang hollow in the stairwell, the concrete walls amplifying every footfall until it felt as though the building itself were breathing. The overhead lights flickered sporadically, as if struggling to stay alight, and the emergency exit sign buzzed with a wavering glow. His flashlight beam danced across peeling paint and rusted pipes, illuminating water dripping from fittings overhead. He reached the landing and nearly stumbled. His partner's silhouette was projected against the wall, leaning back as though exhaling. "Back already?" the partner hissed, voice low but laced with urgency. "I thought you were going down." Daniels shook his head, swallowing hard. His voice caught like gravel. "I saw something, or I thought I did. There's no one here now, but I heard—" He cut himself off. The memory of that faint wave in the gloom was too vivid. His partner switched on a handheld spotlight, the beam carving a narrow tunnel of illumination down the hallway. "Okay, let's clear this place, get eyes on every corner, and then get out of here." They moved together, boots echoing on concrete floors. Doors to storage closets were sealed. One small office door hung ajar, the wooden panel cracked. Inside, a desk lay overturned, papers strewn like fallen leaves. Daniels knelt, shining his light across the scrawl of hastily written notes, names crossed out, circled, rewritten. He recognized the handwriting as his own, from earlier when he'd jotted down dispatch details. He frowned, rubbing a finger over a smear of what looked like dried coffee. No sign of blood. He flipped through the pad. All logs from tonight except one, the pickup call. There was a blank page where he'd clearly intended to note something, then torn away. He glanced at his partner. "Someone's been going through my notes." His partner's eyes widened. A flash of anger or fear Daniels couldn't tell. Before he could ask, a low rumble shook the building, a hum beneath the hum of electric wiring. The generator's sound had returned, but now it bore a deeper resonance, like machinery straining under load. The pair exchanged a look. "Dispatch." Daniels tapped his radio. "The generator's running again down here. Power's kicking back on. Do you copy?" Static for the first time all night. It was as though the frequencies had been seized by a phantom, leaving the real-world channels dead. He pounded the mic in frustration. "Dispatch, answer, nothing but hiss." He dropped the radio to his side, heart hammering. His partner aimed the spotlight at the far end of the corridor. A heavy fire door stood closed, its metal surface dented. No windows. A padlock lay broken at its base. Daniels approached, every muscle coiled. He extended a gloved hand, touched the surface. It was absurdly warm, as if heat radiated from within. He pressed his ear flat against the steel. Silence. Then a soft skittering, like claws across tile. He jerked away, flashlight swinging wildly. The beam caught a smear of dark substance on the ground, trailing away from the door. He knelt, flashlight hovering over footprints, smaller than a man's but larger than a child's, toes splayed. They led to the stairwell beyond the door. Jesus, his partner breathed. "What the hell is this?" Daniels forced himself to follow the trail. They pried the door open together, hinges groaning in protest. Beyond lay a narrow flight of stairs descending further into pitch black. The scent of oil was stronger here, mingled with something acrid, burnt plastic or flesh. Daniel swallowed against the nausea. "Wait here," he told his partner, but the other shook his head. "Number." "We're a team." They traded a brief nod, then climbed down into the darkness. The stairs ended at a concrete floor slick with moisture. The spotlight revealed a small room. Walls lined with pipes and valves, the faint hiss of escaping steam. In the center stood a single chair, tipped backward as though someone had flung themselves off it. The seat was stained dark. Daniels aimed the light at the seat's surface. It was torn upholstery over a metal frame. Beneath, a pool of liquid had pooled, reflecting the flashlight like oil on water. He knelt, steeling himself, and touched the edge of the pool. It was warm. He dabbed a finger, brought it up, sniffed. No metallic tang of blood, but a greasy smell that stung his nostrils. He swallowed bile. A sudden click rang out. A turning key in a lock. They spun toward the stairwell. The door at the top slammed shut. Footsteps echoed away, clattering up the stairs. Daniels lunged for the door, wrenching it open, but the stairwell was empty. Rain had stopped. Outside was silent. The pickup and SUV stood dark, lights extinguished. No sign of footprints in the gravel. He looked back at his partner, pale, eyes wide. They shared the same question: should they run? Before either could speak, the security monitor in the station lobby flickered on above their heads, visible through a cracked window at the stairwell entrance. The feed showed the hallway they'd just left, empty, save for a hooded figure slumped against the wall, hands hanging limply. He stood slowly, turned, and walked toward the camera. Daniel's breath caught as he realized the figure's posture, the way it moved, too deliberate, too human. Then the image cut to static. The monitor climbed in brightness, burned white, then died. Daniels punched the wall in frustration. His gloved knuckles cracked against concrete. "This makes no sense," he muttered. His partner replaced the muzzle light on his rifle, shaking. "We need to get out, now." They bolted up the stairs two at a time and burst into the station lobby. The overhead lights snapped back on fully, fluorescent tubes buzzing. The spilled cans on the floor had multiplied of their own volition, as though more and more had tumbled from the shelves. Daniel's flashlight lay in the center of the floor, corpse-like baggage forgotten. "Might as well have never gone down there," his partner said, voice hollow. Daniels shook his head. "No, something wants us to think that. Something is playing with our heads." He grabbed his radio, pressed the emergency button. Again, silence. He knocked over the flashlight beam onto a wall-mounted phone booth that should have been dead. No landlines this far out. The handset cracked when he lifted it. The cord snarled. He pressed it to his ear. A crackle, then a woman's voice, his wife's voicemail greeting from years ago. He jerked back, heart in his throat. "Number, no, no, no," he whispered, dropping the handset. He whirled, heading for the exit, only to find the front doors welded shut. Rain pattered against the glass from outside, but no staff, no customers, no backup, just oppressive isolation. He rattled the door, fists pounding. His partner yanked at the frame, sweat beating at his temples. "Help me," Daniels rasped into the void. "Please." They stepped back, pressing their shoulders to the doors. The latch creaked, then yielded. They fell forward into the lot. The night swallowed them. Daniels stumbled upright, lungs burning, and looked back. The station's illuminated sign flickered on, then off, reading open when lit, closed when dark, each transition slower than the last. The doors clanged behind them in rhythm. He froze, realizing his partner was gone. He spun, heart thudding, scanning the darkness. Nothing, no radio, no voice, no footsteps, just the distant hum of the road. Daniels called out, voice cracking, "Sam! Sam, where are you?" Silence. Then, from the forest's edge, a single soft footstep. He squinted into the gloom. There, half hidden by pines, a figure stood, pulsing in the muted glow of the lot's lone lamp. Hooded, motionless. It raised its head. No eyes reflected light. The face was blank, like a smooth stone. Daniel shouted, stumbling backward. The figure stepped forward, slow and deliberate, each footfall soundless on wet gravel. He turned to run. 2 steps, 3, then stopped, legs locked. The figure reached out a hand, palm up, as though offering the phone booth's handset, the station's flashlight, his partner's dropped baton. He stood, frozen by something deeper than fear, curiosity, the need to understand. The figure stepped closer, closer, until Daniels could make out the faint outline of earbuds in its ears, the shape of a smartphone in its hand. The screen glowed. He took a hesitant step forward, heart catching. Then the phone slipped from the figure's hand, tumbling away, screen shattering on asphalt. The figure watched it break, head tilting. Daniels blinked. "Help me," he whispered, voice raw. "Tell me what you want." The figure raised its free hand, gloved fingers curling, uncurling, then lowered its head, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Daniels waited, breath ragged, for a response that never came. The night held its secrets close, and the only answer was the echo of his own voice, swallowed by darkness. He sank to his knees in the gravel, inching forward toward the broken phone, the fractured world of static and light. Behind him, the station's doors swung open, empty silhouettes beckoning, promising answers or oblivion. He did not look back. His radio crackled once, faint as a distant sigh, then fell silent. The moon slipped behind a ragged cloud, plunging the lot back into near darkness. Daniels pressed his palm against the cold, coarse asphalt, fingertips brushing against jagged glass from the shattered phone screen. He felt the faint hum of the earth beneath him, like the reverberations of every unanswered 911 call drifting through his bones. Beyond the lone lamp's pool of light, the world was a shifting sea of black, punctuated only by the distant orange glow of a highway curve. He rose slowly, hips stiff and knees aching, and weighed his options. Ahead, the station doors stood open, an invitation and a threat intertwined. Behind, the highway offered potential rescue, but also unknown dangers. He inhaled, the night-sweet scent of wet pine sharp in his nostrils. He flicked on his flashlight. The beam quivered, illuminating the edge of the forest where the hooded figure had vanished. Daniels shivered, recalling its blank face. No eyes, no features, just the suggestion of a person shaped by shadow. He took a tentative step toward the station, each footfall sounding too loud in the hush. The door's hinges creaked in greeting. As he crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped suddenly, as if the building exhaled cold air in his direction. He raised his voice unsteady. "Dispatch, this is Unit 34. I'm back inside. I'm going to secure any exits and wait for someone. Please respond." Daniels advanced down the aisle of shelves, overturned cans forming small hills of metal across the linoleum. Somewhere overhead, a single fluorescent tube sputtered, its light pulsing like a faltering heartbeat. He passed the service counter where the phone booth still stood, the handset dangling from its cord, beckoning. He forced himself not to look inside. Instead, he moved toward the back exit, the one that led to the storage yard. Halfway there, his flashlight caught movement near the coolers. He froze. A shape crouched in the corner, small, too still to be human. He swallowed, voice low. "Come on out." "It's just me." No response. He flicked the beam closer. The figure, clad in the same nondescript dark clothing, pressed against the wall. He saw the glint of earbuds in its ears, the curve of shoulders hunched in posture. "Who are you?" Daniels steadied his breathing. His glove brushed against something sticky on the floor. He knelt, swept aside a droplet of dark fluid. It was too slick, too oily to be blood. He rubbed his fingertip across his cheek. Faint trace of smell, like burnt rubber. The corner figure remained motionless. As he rose, Daniels realized that every exit he checked showed the same thing. No locks, no obstacles. Just the promise of escape that felt impossible to reach. He tested the door handle. Locked. He tested the push bar. Unresponsive. His radio remained dead. He turned back to the figure. "Listen," he said, tone quiet but firm. "I'm not going to hurt you, but I need to get out of here." For a moment, the figure's head tilted, as if acknowledging him. Then it dissolved into shadow and reappeared closer, only inches from Daniel's flashlight beam. He took a step back, heart pounding so loud he was sure the hooded figure heard it. In that moment, a crackle of static filled the overhead speaker. One short pop, then gone. Daniels froze, every nerve ignited. He looked up. The speaker grill at the ceiling pulsed once with life, then was silent again. The hairs on his arms pricked. The faint hiss of rain began again, not outside, but inside, echoing as though the station had become a cavern where the storm roamed free. Daniel swallowed, voice shaking as he called out, "Is anyone here? If you are, show yourself. I need help." A whisper answered, floating from somewhere above. "Help." It was drawn out, ragged, barely audible. He scanned the ceiling tiles, one of which sagged slightly. Daniel stepped forward, aimed his light at the tile. There was no mistaking it. A fingertip-sized hole where something had pressed from above. He knelt, pried the edge with trembling fingers. The tile slid aside, revealing a narrow crawl space filled with ancient ductwork. Through the gap, a faint glow emanated, pulsing red, like the reflection of brake lights. Daniels peered in. The duct was coated in grime, but scratched letters etched into the metal caught his eye. "Room 7 checked." He straightened, pulse throbbing. Room 7. He remembered nothing about a Room 7, no listings in station files, no address on any map. His partner's voice echoed in his head. "We're a team." But his partner was gone. He shone the beam toward the back corner. The cooler doors rattled. They'd been closed before, now swinging gently. Behind one, the temperature gauge glowed an abnormal hue, too warm for refrigeration. He opened it. The light inside was dim purple. No food, only a fiberglass panel set into the interior wall. Behind the panel lay a keypad, the digits smudged from repeated use. Daniel's breath hitched. "Why are you doing this?" He reached out, thumb brushing the smeared numbers. The pad emitted a single beep, but no code accepted. The door remained sealed. He retracted his hand. The cooler door swung shut of its own accord, leaving him in near darkness. A flicker of movement at the edge of his light made him whirl. On the ground lay his partner's rifle, stock cracked and barrel bent, as if dropped in a hurry. Daniels knelt, picked it up. No sign of his partner nearby, no footprints, no voice. Just the rifle, cold in his hands, barrel pointed toward the floor. As he stood, beam scanning, a deep voice echoed from the darkness. Calm, measured, male, but unfamiliar. You shouldn't have come back. Daniels froze, lightning in his gut. He swung the flashlight toward the sound. The back storage door stood open a crack. Beyond it, a corridor lit by the same odd purple glow. The walls were slick, painted in streaks that looked like dried oil or shadow. He stepped forward. Company be damned. The voice came again, closer. We can end this tonight. He swallowed, grip tightening on the rifle. What are you? No answer. Instead, the purple light pulsed, drawing him forward. The door whispered closed behind him with a click that echoed like a gunshot. Daniels paused, breath visible in the thin light. The corridor stretched out, each door on either side unmarked, except one. Faint letters on chipped paint spelled 7. His pulse hammered. He moved toward it. Hand on the knob, he hesitated, every instinct screaming to retreat. Behind him, the door he'd entered through remained sealed. No handle, no snap of lock, just solid metal where escape had been. He knocked softly on the door labeled 7. The knock sounded hollow. Inside, the light pulsed faster, synchronized with his heartbeat. He braced himself, then turned the knob. The door swung inward smoothly, no resistance. He crossed the threshold into a room bathed in spectral purple. In the center stood a single hospital bed, sheets stained and twisted. At the foot of the bed lay a worn medical chart, open to a page listing patients, each name scratched out except one. Sarah Kenny, Dob November 2nd, 1958. Chills surged through him as he recognized the name. The original officer from Dryan, the one who first chased a whisper in the night. He stepped closer. On the bed lay a figure, slumped, covered with a stained sheet. Daniels approached, heart pounding, and pulled back the sheet in one smooth movement. The figure's face was obscured, but a gloved hand protruded, the fingertips pointing toward an IV stand at the bed's head. Tubing led from the stand to a half-empty bag of fluid. No label, just a handwritten note. For clarity. Daniel's flashlight flickered. He heard his own voice echo. What happened to you? No answer. He gripped the edge of the bed and steadied himself. The room's single window was barred, but rain beat against the panes. Suddenly, the fluid in the bag began to swirl, forming letters on its surface. Find Sarah. Daniel swallowed, mind racing. He looked down at the chart again, no hint of an entry beyond the crossed-out names. He realized, with a sick twist of understanding, that the same pattern from Maine had been etched here, in this abandoned station, this impossible room. A whisper drifted through the IV tubing, barely audible but unmistakable. Daniels. He staggered back, rifle raised. The door behind him clicked, and then swung open, revealing 2 pairs of headlights shining through the bars. Uniformed figures stepped in. Backup, finally. Their faces were obscured by masks, their forms rigid. One of them raised a phone, its screen bright white. Daniels flinched, expecting static or a whisper, but the screen displayed a simple message in bold letters: "Don't trust the light." The purple glow faded as the figures advanced, boots silent on concrete. Daniels backed away, heart hammering. The message on the phone flickered, only darkness knows. He swallowed, a voice barely a whisper. What now? Silence answered. The room dimmed until only the IV stand's glow remained, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. And as the door clicked shut behind the newcomers, locking him in, Daniels realized there was no path forward except into the unknown. He raised his rifle, voice trembling yet resolute. I'm not leaving you here. But the bed lay empty. The sheet had fallen back to reveal the mattress, imprint and all, yet no body. The chart lay on the floor, pages fluttering as though in an unseen breeze. Daniels dropped to his knees and read the final line scrawled at the bottom of the chart. Hope dies in the dark. The purple light drained away, leaving him staring at the empty bed, the locked door, and the weight of every unanswered call echoing in his chest. He realized, with a quiet devastation, that somewhere beyond these walls the night had not ended. It had only just begun. Officer Daniels' breath came in ragged gasps as the heavy door clicked shut behind the masked figures. The echo of their boots faded instantly, swallowed by the cavernous silence of the abandoned station. He stood alone in the dim glow of the IV stand, the pulsing light slowing to a steady beat that matched his own heart. He raised his rifle, training its cold barrel on the empty space where the newcomers had vanished, but the muzzle weighed like dead iron in his hands. The walls around him breathed with stale air and mildew. Water dripped in measured intervals from overhead pipes, each drop hammering his nerves. His flashlight cast jittering shadows that danced across peeling paint and concrete seams. He forced himself to move, every step an act of will. The only exit, behind the two masked officers, lay sealed. Ahead, the corridor stretched toward darkness and unknown danger. The IV stand's glow was his sole landmark in a sea of black. Daniels lowered the rifle's butt against his shoulder and advanced toward the corridor entrance. The masked officers had left no footprints, no blood, no hint of their destination, just his partner's discarded weapon and that final whispered warning, "Only darkness knows." He swallowed, voice hoarse. This isn't over. No answer but the hum of the disused fluorescent fixtures overhead. He passed the struck-through names on the medical chart, their ghostly margins still visible. A catalog of victims, each line struck by someone's pen after the fact, as if eliminating witnesses. Only Sarah Kenny remained uncrossed. He tucked the chart into his jacket pocket, lest it flutter away in some unseen breeze. His mind raced. Sarah Kenny's name belonged here for a reason. She was the first officer in Maine years ago, chasing footprints that vanished into woods. Now her name lingered in this forsaken station's secret catalog. What pattern tied her to these walls? A low vibration trembled through the floorboards. Daniels paused, pressing a careful ear to the concrete. Beneath the hiss of the IV machine's pump, he heard a distant thrum, like the distant sputter of a car starting. Not his cruiser, something older, heavier, its engine coughing to life somewhere beyond these walls. He keyed the mic on his radio, hoping for a spark. "Unit 34 to dispatch. Are you there? Aye?" Only static greeted him, as though the frequencies themselves had been severed. He crept forward, flashlight tracing the corridor's length. Doors lined each side, unmarked, silent. Some were ajar, their edges scraped. Others were bolted from within. A drip of water spattered onto his boot. He looked down to see a thin thread of fluid oozing from beneath one door. It was darker and thicker than condensation, like dried oil or residue from something long buried. There were no labels, just the door. Daniels twisted the handle. It rattled but held firm. He pressed his shoulder into the frame, steadying himself, and forced the door open a few inches. A stale gust of air met him, a fetid smell of rot and damp cardboard. The flashlight beam revealed shelving units tipped over, cardboard boxes shredded. On the floor lay a scattering of paper, patient records, entirely blank. He stepped inside, boots crunching on debris. He lifted a sheet. It was as blank as a fresh notepad, yet damp to the touch, as if someone had breathed on it and recoiled. He backed out, closing the door softly. As he turned, the corridor lights flickered. Once, twice, then died, leaving him in near total darkness. His flashlight remained his guide, a solitary star in an endless void. He tested the door handles on the next room. Locked. The third door gave with a creak, hinges protesting. Inside, a shallow pit had been dug in the concrete floor, edges raw, jagged pieces of slab lying around. At the bottom, a puddle had formed, black and still. Something glistened at the center, a single medical glove, floating fingertips up, as though someone had placed it there as an offering. Daniels swallowed, stomach twisting. He knelt, shining his beam onto the glove. It was damp, the liner inside coated with fine grains of dust and flecks of rust. He touched its surface with a fingertip, cold as relic metal. He paused, then withdrew quickly as though the glove had bitten him. He rose, backing out of the room, every instinct screaming to flee, but where? The corridor stretched on. He moved forward again. His radio crackled, a faint hiss, then a whispered word. "Help." The voice was thin, but he recognized its cadence, its timbre. It was his partner's voice, Sam's voice. But Sam had disappeared. Daniels froze, flashlight angled toward the darkness. The corridor remained empty, silent. He raised the radio. "Sam? Is that you?" No response, just static. A second whisper drifted through the speaker. "Daniels." He yanked off the radio earpiece and flung it to the ground. The piece clattered and skidded across the concrete, sending dust motes dancing in his beam. He panted, his uniform soaked with sweat and rain wicking through his collar. He felt the walls closing in. At the corridor's end, he saw a distant glow, pale orange, like dusk sunlight, but too directed to be natural. He approached, breathing shallow, hand on his service weapon. The corridor opened into a larger chamber, the old basement furnace room, gutted now of machinery. Girders and pipes jutted from the walls. In its center stood a table, a steel autopsy slab, stained and scarred. The orange light emerged from a single working lamp suspended above it, its cord frayed in places. On the slab lay an object wrapped in tattered cloth, secured with heavy duct tape. Daniels hesitated, heart pounding. He stepped closer, shedding any pretense of caution. He reached out, palm trembling, and peeled back a corner of the cloth. Beneath was a battered police badge, no department name, just the standard eagle perched atop a shield-shaped medallion. The number stamped below had been ground away, the surface rough. Underneath the badge, etched into the metal of the slab, were two interlinked circles, one larger, one smaller. Symbols he'd seen once before, in a surgeon's notes from years ago, scribbled next to his own name in the dispatch logs. He withdrew his hand and pressed his palm flat on the slab. It was cold, colder than metal should be. A tremor ran through the floor. He staggered, steadying himself on the slab's edge. The lamp above flickered, then brightened, as though enhanced by an unseen force. In that harsh glare, the cloth wrappings shifted slightly, minute but deliberate. Daniels exhaled, voice a rasp. "Who are you working for?" No answer. He yanked the duct tape free, peeling it back noisily. The cloth fell away in two halves, revealing what lay beneath. A mannequin's head, life-size, crafted of wax, hair matted, eyes pinned open, staring into nothingness. Its features were eerily lifelike, mold lines hidden. The mouth was slightly agape, as though it had been frozen in a scream. Around its neck, a tarnished chain held a tarnished medal. To protect and serve. Daniels recoiled, stumbling back. The mannequin's eyes caught his beam, glinting with a wet sheen, though he knew wax could not glint. A faint odor of formaldehyde drifted through the air, impossibly. He noticed then that the cloth had not been on the head originally, but was laid beneath it, as if placed to cushion it. The edges of the slab bore a ring of darker stains, forming a halo around the mannequin's head. He raised his rifle, voice firm but trembling. "This ends now." The lamp sputtered and died, plunging him into darkness so complete that he thought he'd lost his vision. Then, an instant later, the lamp flashed back on, brighter than before, revealing the head gone from the slab. The slab itself was empty, save for the etched rings and a single drop of dark fluid pooling in the center. The mannequin's head lay at his feet, staring up at him, mouth still frozen in a scream. Daniels fell to his knees, letting the rifle slump to the ground. He placed one hand on the back of the head, fingers brushing its lifeless hair. He half expected it to flinch, to whisper his name, but there was only the hollow echo of his own breaths and the stuttering hum of the exit sign overhead. Then the sign flickered off, leaving him enveloped in darkness again. He drew a sharp breath and rose unsteadily to his feet. The corridor behind him was gone, replaced by a single steel door, unmarked, ominous. He approached, hand trembling on the handle, and heard behind the door the unmistakable drip of water and the low hum of machinery. His fingers tightened on the handle. He paused, drawing on every ounce of resolve left in him. He opened the door and stepped through. The ceiling lights hummed and then blazed to life, revealing a long row of cells. Like in a mental ward, each cell door barred, thick glass panes fogged and smeared. Inside the first cell was a cot and a single scribble on the wall, "We never left." The second cell was empty, but for wet footprints leading to the back wall. The third held a figure slumped in a corner, hooded, dark coat pulled tight. As Daniel's flashlight swept toward it, the figure lifted its head, revealing Sarah Kenny's face. Pale, gaunt, eyes hollow. She mouthed something, but no sound came. Daniels gasped, stepping forward. The cell door stood ajar. He reached for it, fear and relief warring in his chest. He called her name. No answer. He leaned closer, saw the word carved into the glass at her shoulder, "Remember." Then the lights flickered off again. When they came back on, the cell was empty. No Sarah Kenny, no footprints, nothing but the faint scrawl on the wall. "Find me in the dark." Daniel's knees buckled. He slid to the floor, pressed his back against the cold glass, and realized with a sinking dread that he was no longer searching for escape. He was the one being hunted. The distant hum of the highway faded. The hush of the station settled in deep, as though the walls themselves were breathing. He drew in a ragged breath, voice barely a whisper. "Where are you?" A single light then blinked on at the far end of the corridor, a tiny red pinprick in the darkness, and Daniel's heart thundering, understood that whatever answers he sought lay just beyond that point, and that crossing the distance might be the last thing he ever did. He stayed where he was, pressed against the cool glass of the empty cell, breath ragged in the sudden hush. The red light at the corridor's end pulsed once, twice, then held steady, an imperious beacon against the darkness. Dust motes drifted through its beam, catching in the air like slow-falling snow. Daniels wiped sweat from his brow, realizing the station's silence was no longer just absence of sound, but a presence of its own, heavy and insistent. He rose, legs stiff, and pushed off the glass. Every motion felt as though he were dragging through water, each step laden with the echoes of unseen watchers. The barred cell doors lined both sides of the hall now bore messages, crudely carved into metal and glass. "Don't blink, they move when you do. Listen to the silence." His flashlight beam quivered as he swept it over the words. The walls themselves seemed to lean inward, closing him in. He moved forward, counting each footstep against the red glow. The air grew colder with every cell he passed, breath misting like smoke in the narrow beam. As he reached the midpoint of the corridor, he saw it. A pair of shoes, polished black patrol boots, just like his own, lying side by side in the center of the concrete floor. No bodies, no legs, just the boots. They pointed toward the red light. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing himself not to recoil. He stepped around them, careful not to touch, and pressed on. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out the quiet hum of the red beacon. Cell doors rattled involuntarily, as though teased by some hidden breeze. He paused at each one, pressing his ear to the bars to hear if any sound lay behind. Nothing but static, faux silence that hissed at him through unseen speakers. Then, halfway down, he noticed on the floor a trail of something small and dark, tiny pellets like spilled coffee grounds or pepper, leading from one cell to the next. He stooped, shining his light down. They were grains of shattered glass, glinting like stars against the concrete. He followed the trail to the 10th cell, where the door was partially open, the bars bent inward as though someone had forced their way out. Daniel's breath caught. He crouched and peered inside. The cell held nothing but a single object in the center. A battered, blood-stained notebook, its cover torn, pages fluttering. He stepped in, each movement making the door creak a low warning. He picked up the notebook, opened it. The pages were filled with frantic scrawl, overlapping lines, corrections, words written on top of words. I can see you when you look away. They study your eyes to learn your fears. They hear your heart, watch it race. They're mine. You belong to the dark now. Daniel's hand shook as he flipped pages, the ink smudging under his grip. On the last page, a message in neat block letters. Don't turn around. His flashlight flickered. He froze, heart thundering. Without taking his eyes from the notebook, he slowly pivoted, 2 steps, until the light revealed the end of the corridor behind him. It was empty, but the red beacon seemed brighter now, as if nearer. He turned back, breath shallow. The notebook fell from his fingers, pages fanning open. On the floor, something scrawled in fresh, wet ink. I'm right here. Daniel snapped his head toward the direction of the red light. The corridor beyond the red glow was suddenly visible. Another door, thick and steel-lined, its surface marred with scorch marks. From beneath it seeped a fine steam, curling into the corridor like tendrils of smoke. He stepped forward, caution drowned by a raw need to know. Each footstep reverberated, louder than before, as though he were announcing his approach to unseen ear. Reaching the door, he pressed his palm to its surface. It was blistering hot, warmth bleeding through his glove. He wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead and found a small latch beside the frame. He flipped it aside, and the door swung inward without resistance, revealing a vertical shaft descending into gloom. A single industrial chain hung at the waist level, rusted and thick, with a ring at its end. He grasped the ring, heart pounding, and lowered himself down the shaft. Each rung clanged under his weight, the metal echoing in a deep, hollow void. After what felt like an eternity, he reached a landing at the bottom. A circular chamber lined with opaque plexiglass windows, fogged and smeared, each looking out into darkness. The red light above him burned brighter here, emanating from a ring of small bulbs set into the ceiling. At the chamber's center was a pit, yawning into blackness, its edge rimmed with a grated metal walkway. Beyond the pit, through the plexiglass, he thought he saw movement. Figures pacing, their outlines indistinct but purposeful. Daniel set his flashlight on the floor. It flickered weakly. He studied the pit. At its bottom, a faint pulsating glow, like molten metal cooled in a cavern. Every so often, a ripple of light would climb the walls, reflecting through the glass windows. He leaned forward, peering into the depths. The air was thick with a low resonance, like a hive of voices humming beneath a consciousness. He lifted his voice, though his throat had gone dry. "Hello? Is anyone there?" The reply was immediate, but not a voice. The pit's light pulsed, bright and swift, simulating a strobe. When the light paused, he heard a breath, a sharp intake, from outside the chamber. He swiveled, beam catching the fogged glass. On the other side, the figures were closer, still shadowy, their faces merging into indistinction. One lifted an arm, pressing a palm against the glass. It felt like an accusation. Daniel's heart lurched. He pounded on the glass. "Please, let me out!" No reaction. The pit's light shifted hue, from red to deep violet, the chamber dimming. The resonance rose to a keening pitch. Daniel stepped back, raising his rifle in a reflex he barely felt. The walkway grated under his boots as he circled the pit, eyes darting to each window. The figures mirrored his movement, 3 of them, following silently, their motions synchronized as though choreographed. He lunged for the chain and began to climb, but halfway up, the chain slipped from its mount with a shriek of metal. He fell backward, crashing onto the walkway. The rifle skittered across the metal, clattering into the pit. He scrambled after it, heart pounding, but the reach was too far. He grasped at the rail, knuckles white. The figures pressed against the opposite windows, faces now clear reflections of his terror. Daniels scrambled to his feet, the resonance peaking in an unbearable scream. The pit's light flashed white, then black. For a heartbeat, darkness swallowed him. When the lights returned, the figures were gone. The windows empty, just fogged glass. His rifle lay at his feet, inexplicably gleaming in the white light. He grabbed it, tactile reality grounding him. He saw then the control panel beside the door. Buttons and switches, some labeled in faded text: vent, lock, drain. His eyes flicked to the drain valve, hoping for an exit. He threw the rifle aside and knelt at the panel, flipping switches until the hum of the chamber shifted. A sucking sound as air and light drained, plunging him into near darkness. But the pit's glow intensified, illuminating a single hatch at the chamber's floor. The drain label blinked red above it. Daniels pressed the hatch latch. It opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a tunnel descending further into earth. He hesitated, breath ragged, then slid in head first. The tunnel walls were damp concrete, the glow from the pit above disappearing with each inch. He crawled, hands scraping, until at last the tunnel sloped upward into a rectangular doorway. He emerged into a narrow utility corridor lit by flickering bulbs. The air smelled of ozone and rust. At the far end, double doors marked exit stood slightly ajar. He staggered toward them, rifle in hand. As he passed a wall panel, he glimpsed through a vented grate the fire pump controls, sprayed with oil, wires torn. He paused to plug the gaps with his gloved fingers, hoping to block whatever had been tracking him. He burst through the exit doors into the upper floor hallway, the same corridor where he'd seen the red light, now stripped of all illumination. His flashlight flickered, struggling to stay lit. In the distance, an exit sign glowed faintly green. He moved toward it, reflexive. As he approached, he saw his own reflection in a shattered window, eyes wide with desperation. He reached the green exit sign and touched the door handle. It yielded. He pushed through into a stairwell flooded with moonlight, spilling in from high windows. The walls were bare concrete, and the stairs led up into silence. He climbed quickly, each step strengthening his resolve. At the top, he burst through a heavy door labeled Lobby, blinking in the sudden brightness of dawn's first rays. He found himself in an empty lobby, the service station from outside. windows intact, pumps idle, rain-streaked forecourt empty. No trace of figures, no ominous boots, no dripping fluids. The early light slanted in, backlighting his breath and the dust swirling at his feet. He exhaled, lifting the rifle at his side in a weary salute to the awakening world. Outside, his cruiser sat where he'd left it, engine cold. The highway beyond curved away into morning haze. He holstered the rifle and slid the door open, stepping onto the wet asphalt. Behind him, the station lobby lights clicked off, windows darkening as though the building itself had drawn its blinds. He turned away, boots soft on the gravel, and walked toward his car. As he reached the driver's door, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. One missed call, no voicemail. Then a text. Daniels. Look behind you. He froze. The station doors swung open in soft invitation. The red beacon glowed faintly in the upper window before fading. He swallowed. The highway was empty, the morning still. He closed his eyes, and in the hush he heard it once more, a whisper, carried on a breeze that wasn't there. Daniels. He stepped backward, keys in hand, and realized that as long as the night outlasted him, the story would never end. Officer Daniels dropped his keys with a soft clatter against the gravel, and froze, every muscle taut as drawn wire. He dared not. His pulse hammered in his throat, every instinct screaming to flee, yet his feet remained rooted. Behind him, the station's double glass doors whispered open, swinging inward on silent hinges. The morning light that had poured through them just moments ago now drained away, leaving behind a tableau drenched in shadow. The red beacon blinked one slow time in the upper window, then died. The lot was empty, save for him, caught between the promise of escape on the highway and the yawning darkness of the station door. He pulled in a trembling breath and forced his legs to move, stepping backward toward his cruiser. His phone buzzed once more. I see you. He swallowed. The words weren't typed. They were scrawled, jittering across the screen as though written in frantic hand. The air behind him trembled, alive with unspoken presence. He kept his gaze fixed forward, heel edging closer to the cracked asphalt. His uniform felt soaked through, but he couldn't remember rain falling. The world had narrowed to 2 points of light, his phone screen and the highway's track of orange dawn. His hand slipped into his pocket, brushing the folded medical chart, the one bearing Sarah Kenny's uncrossed name. He hesitated, then pulled it free. Across the top, someone had scribbled a new note in block letters. Find the eyes. He pressed the chart against his chest, heart hammering. Find the eyes. The whisper of the station doors swinging ceased the rattle of loose debris. He glanced up. The doors were now completely shut, windows dark. How long had they been that way? His reflection stared back at him from the tinted glass, pale, gaunt, haunted. He lifted a hand to the door, fingertips grazing the cold surface. Ice bloomed at the touch. Then the whisper came again, so close he felt the breath on his ear, there watching. He spun, phone clattering to the ground. The station facade no longer resembled the shell he'd entered. The pumps were twisted sculptures of metal, nozzles coiled like serpents. The convenience store windows were webbed with cracks, black stains seeping through the glass. The pillared canopy arched overhead, but its ceiling was gone, replaced by a starless sky that pressed down upon him, suffocating in its absence of light. He drew his service weapon, shaking. The slide clicked home with finality. Every shadow beyond the car's headlights leapt, elongated as though alive. The same drip-drip he'd heard in the station now echoed across the lot, slow, measured, resonant. Daniels froze, listening. The drip was followed by footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching gravel, moving closer. He edged around the cruiser, pressing his back against the cold door. The growth of fear in his chest was hot, a living thing. The footsteps stopped behind him. His breathing clogged. He forced his gaze upward. The canopy above was gone, replaced by pulsing red lights circling the void where the ceiling should have been. The lights traced a slow ring, a galaxy of low-humming bulbs, dripping sparks like dying fireflies. From that overhead ring came the same low resonance he'd heard in the pit, a chorus of distant voices, overlapping words he could not decipher. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. No answer but the drip and the hum. Then, in the glare of the red lights, he saw them. Faces pressed against the station window, dozens of them. Pale, gaunt, eyes unblinking, mouths parted in silent cries. They lined every pane, some full-grown, some child-sized, all bearing that same blank, hungry stare. His radio died again in his hand, static over every frequency. He lowered his weapon slowly. Tears brimmed but did not fall. He thought of Sarah Kenny, of Officer Kenny's cold colonial house, of the pattern that had led him here. The chart crinkled in his grip. "Find the eyes," he murmured. He raised the chart to his face, matching the scrawled letters to the faces beyond the glass. In one window, third from the left, second row, a single pair of eyes met his, wide and unblinking, pupils dilated into dark voids. No face behind them, just the suggestion of a person carved out of emptiness. The drip stopped. The hum rose to a piercing crescendo, then cut off instantly. The red lights winked out, plunging him into darkness so pure it felt liquid. He blinked, eyes adjusting to the gloom. In that moment, the chart slipped from his fingers, pages fanning across the asphalt. A single page drifted to rest at his feet, illuminated by a thin sliver of dawn sliding under a corner of the station doors. "Aren't you tired?" He sank to his knees, chest heaving. The highway lights in the distance were fading. Morning was coming, but the world remained unchanged. Endless dark, endless whispers, eyes pressed against glass. He realized with bone-deep clarity that he was not meant to leave this place. That the station, the pit, the cells, the ring of red lights, they were all facets of a single machine, designed to trap him in its quiet, watching heart. He looked up, voice barely a whisper. "I'm tired." A shimmer of motion at the corner of his vision made him turn. An officer's patrol cap, drifting on the breeze, came rolling toward him. He reached out, fingers closing around the brim, fingertips brushing the tarnished badge embroidered beneath. He flung it aside and stood, resolve hardening. He would find the eyes. He would answer the whispers. Even if it cost him everything, he would not walk away. Officer Daniels stepped through the yawning doors once more, and the world behind him vanished like a mirage. The moment he crossed the threshold, the air shifted. No longer the damp chill of early morning, but a thick, cloying warmth that pressed against his lungs. His boots sank into the floor as if into soft earth, and the lights overhead glowed faintly, casting everything in a sickly amber haze. He raised his rifle in one hand, phone and chart clutched in the other, but the weapon felt absurd, an outdated relic in a house that had rearranged itself around him. The corridor before him was no longer straight. The walls curved inward and leaned toward one another, narrowing the path into an undulating tunnel. He could hear his own breathing echo against the walls, each inhale wheezing, each exhale hollow. The hooded figures from the windows stood at the entrance, their pale faces now so close he could count the fine ink of printed tattoos curling beneath their skin. They smiled, wide, impossible grins that revealed rows of cracked teeth. They did not speak, but their eyes conveyed a single message. "We're waiting." Daniels swallowed, turning away from the window figures to continue deeper into the station. He passed doorways that had not existed moments before. A glass vestibule filled with mannequins dressed in his own uniform, each frozen in a different pose, saluting, reloading, kneeling. Their faces were plaster-cast replicas of his own features, molded from lifeless wax. He shuddered and pressed on. The hallway ended at a ramshackle desk, behind which sat a single swivel chair. A lamp rested on the desk, its shade patched with duct tape and newspaper. Headlines about cold cases, missing persons, hospital errors. When he approached, the headlines rearranged themselves. Officer Daniels declared missing. Station vanishes at dawn. Family awaits return. The words shifted under his gaze, letters twisting and bleeding at the edges. He reached out to steady the paper, and the ink blurred into a single question. "Why did you come back?" He spun, rifle raised, only to find behind him a row of filing cabinets stretching into darkness. He flicked his flashlight toward them. The drawers creaked open slowly, one after another, revealing photographs pinned to the interior fronts. Grainy stills of him asleep in the cruiser, of him hesitating at the station doors, of him leaning over Sarah Kenny's bed. Each photo was annotated in neat pencil. Her turn next, your eyes, so close. He flinched away. A distant throb began beneath his feet, the same frequency as the pit's pulsing glow, now resonating through the entire building. The floorboards vibrated under him. The lamp on the desk pulsed in time. The walls bent inward further, painted slogans appearing in dripping script. "Never alone. We remember you. Yield to the dark." Daniels forced himself to breathe, palms slick around the rifle. He remembered the chart, Sarah Kenny, the one name uncrossed, and that message. Find the eyes. His gaze flitted to the lamp's pulsing light, but then to the circled photograph of Sarah pinned above the desk, her own eyes marked with silver ink. He approached and tore the photo from the wall. Beneath it was scribbled a riddle. What watches when the watcher sleeps? He dropped the photo and looked around frantically. The desk lamp's glow coalesced, forming a pool of liquid light on the desktop. From within it, a face emerged, his own. Younger, eyes wide in terror. The face opened its mouth in a silent scream, and tiny ripples spread across the desk, warping the desk headlines into grotesque visages. Daniels recoiled, nearly tripping over one of the wax mannequins that had crept forward across the floor. A rasping whisper filled the space around him, rising and falling like wind through dead trees. "Daniels. Daniels." The voice seemed both far and near, as if coming from beneath the floor and above the ceiling simultaneously. The filing cabinet's drawers slammed shut in unison, and the path forward plunged into darkness. He clicked his flashlight off, and the room went completely black. The whispering voice ceased. His own breath sounded deafening. He fumbled in the darkness, phone and chart falling to the floor. He heard them land somewhere to his right. He rubbed his eyes, then heard, distinct, unmistakable, the snap of paper tearing. He bent down, hands finding the cold linoleum, fingertips brushing the chart's crisp edge. He scooped it up, heart pounding. He flipped through the pages. Sarah Kenny's name was no longer alone. Beneath it, in a new spidery scrawl, "Open your eyes." He closed the chart and pressed it to his chest, then straightened. The darkness wasn't oppressive. It was alive, luminous with unseen shapes shifting at the periphery. He stepped forward, hands outstretched, trusting that the path would reveal itself. As he walked, the lamp reignited overhead with a crackle. Its single bulb cast a cone of yellow light that pulsed once, then stabilized. Beneath that lamp sat a simple wooden chair, facing away from him. It had not been there before. Daniels inched closer. Each footstep rang out in the dead air, as though summoned. He raised his rifle, hand trembling. He circled the chair, staring at its worn backrest. No footprints, no sign of recent use. Then he saw a pair of boots peeking from beneath it. He swallowed and spoke through clenched teeth. I'm here to help." He gripped the chair arms and pulled, tilting it backward. A body slumped out. His own form, uniform stained and ragged, eyes closed. He stumbled back, heart pounding. The body's eyelids fluttered open, revealing pupils that glowed like embers in the dim light. The eyes fixed on him, unwavering. The corpse, him, tilted its head in welcome. Daniels pointed his rifle, but the figure smiled, rising to its feet in a fluid motion. It stretched limbs that were just slightly too long, fingers that bent at unnatural angles. It took a step toward him, boots echoing on the floor. Daniels backed away, heartbeat deafening. His own reflection glimmered in the dark windows behind the figure. 2 denials, one alive, one undead. The undead version lifted a hand and pointed to his chest. Beneath his heart, a circle had been burned into his shirt. He clutched at the symbol, the edges of his uniform smoldering under his fingers. The echoing whisper returned, forming words. "Find the eyes. Stay with us." The undead Daniel advanced, voice a rasp. "It's time to sleep." The room lurched. The walls pulsed inward. The desk headlines reappeared in the darkness. Officer Daniels to serve eternally, never to wake. Daniels closed his eyes, dropping the rifle, accepting the darkness surging through his veins. He felt himself collapse backward, limbs growing heavy. The last sensation was cool steel against his back, the chair seat railing as he sank. The whisper became a lullaby, a chorus of voices chanting his name. Somewhere deep inside, he thought he heard Sarah Kenny's gentle voice, "Welcome home." Then, in the silence that followed, Daniels opened his eyes to the figure's face inches from his own. No features, just the endless black of its voided eyes. In that final moment, he realized he was not looking into another's gaze, but into a reflection of his own soul, consumed by the darkness he had chased. The world shivered around him as Daniels slipped free of the chair, body weightless, like sinking into a pool of shadow. He found himself standing again in that curved corridor, rifle in hand, but no longer certain what it was for. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat of stale air, the acrid scent of rust and sweat pressing into his lungs. Somewhere ahead, the red beacon hummed back to life, a single bulb spinning lazily in the gloom. He moved toward it, each step measured, as if through water. The mannequins lining the hallway had multiplied, dozens of them, all molded in the precise likeness of his own face, heads thrown back in silent screams. Their eyes, hollow sockets carved into wax, seemed to follow him as he passed. He raised a trembling hand to touch one's cold cheek. The figures crumbled at his fingertips into brittle dust and scattered like ash across the floor. The corridor narrowed until he arrived at a heavy iron door, its surface pitted and scarred. No handle, only a circular window at eye level, cracked and smeared. He pressed his forehead to the glass. Beyond lay only infinite darkness. Yet, from within he felt the presence of countless watchers. He keyed his radio one last time. Static hissed and died. He tucked it into a pocket, his breath slowing, resolve stealing. With both hands, he pressed his shoulder against the door. It gave with a groan of tearing metal, swinging inward onto a rusted hinge. He stepped through into a low-ceilinged chamber lit by the same pulsing red glow. In its center was a shallow pool of black liquid, still, mirror-smooth. Around its edge lay the scattered remnants of his life, His badge, his partner's rifle, Sarah Kenny's chart, each item floating just beneath the surface, half submerged. He knelt at the pool's rim, heart thrumming. The liquid reflected his face, gaunt, hollow-eyed, yet as he stared, the image shifted. His reflection raised a hand and beckoned him forward. He inhaled, voice cracking, "No." But his reflection only smiled, lips stretching too wide, eyes widening into dark voids. A single drop of crimson water slid from the ceiling into the pool, sending ripples that carried his belongings one by one into the center. Daniels reached to stop them, but his fingers passed through the liquid as though it were air. The pool's surface glowed steadily now, illuminating shapes beneath. Dozens of eyes, pale and unblinking, staring up at him from the depths. They drifted slowly, following his movements. He staggered back, mind reeling. He realized then those weren't reflections. They were the watchers he'd pursued, faces of the missing, the broken, the elderly calling names in darkness. They lay trapped here, imprisoned beneath the station, forced to watch endless loops of his own terror. His reflection on the far wall, projected by a flickering lamp, smiled and mouthed a single word. "Stay." Daniels closed his eyes, chest tightening. When he opened them, the watchers had pressed against the pool's underside, hands reaching upward through the glassy barrier. Their fingertips tapped the surface in silent accusation. He felt their longing, their plea. He dropped to his knees, mind fraying. His rifle lay on the floor behind him. He had no use for it anymore. He slid to the edge of the pool and let himself fall forward, body weightless until he floated on the black liquid, face level with the glassy skin. Below, the eyes looked into him, and he into them. He realized, with a crushing clarity, that the station was not a place. It was a snare woven of every unanswered call, every missing person, every ragged whisper carried on the night wind, and now it had claimed him as its final victim. He closed his eyes. When he reopened them, he was still floating, but the red glow had softened to a gentle amber. The watchers sank away, leaving only his reflection in the stillness. He cupped his hands and let the liquid slip through his fingers, cold, smooth, giving way. The black water closed over Daniel's shoulders like a living blanket, cool and unyielding. He felt buoyant, weightless, as though he were neither sinking nor swimming, but simply existing in a vast, silent sea. The amber glow above dimmed, and in that gentle half-light he could make out the outlines of the watchers beneath him, pale faces turned upward, eyes wide and unblinking. They hovered at the pool's underside, fingertips brushing the glass as though pleading for contact. He floated there, chest rising and falling in slow, deliberate breaths, until at last his mind stilled. The relentless thrum of his own heartbeat softened into a distant drum, and the last echoes of his frantic flight through twisted corridors faded into stillness. He reached out, fingertips brushing the cool glass of the chamber wall above the pool. On the other side, the watchers pressed their faces to the pane, their eyes reflecting something he had never wanted to see. His own fear mirrored back at him, multiplied by dozens. Daniels closed his eyes and allowed memories to drift through his mind. Sarah Kenny's whisper in the hospital corridor years ago, the idle pickup in the service station lot, the endless radio static that had once been his lifeline. All those moments had been threads woven together by something dark and meticulous, and now they formed a tapestry he could never unravel. He cupped his hands and let the black water flow around them, feeling its smooth insistence as it passed through his fingers. When he opened his eyes again, the watchers had receded, melting back into the darkness beyond the glass, leaving him utterly alone. The amber light above flickered once, then went out, plunging him into a velvet black so complete that his own breath sounded like thunder. In that absolute void, he realized that there was nowhere left to run. No door to open, no radio channel that would ever crackle to life with a friendly voice. The station, the pit, the endless loop of corridors. They were not just a trap, they were his destiny. A single thought surfaced then, clear and devastating in its simplicity. He had become the final watcher. He was now part of the darkness he had chased. His eyes added to the unblinking multitude beneath the glass. And somewhere, beyond the walls he could no longer perceive, another officer, another Daniels, would find the station's doors, drawn by the echo of his name. That newcomer would feel the same pull, guided along the narrowing halls, blinking nervously at the pulsing lights, until at last they reached this pool, and the watchers would press their faces once more against the glass. A cold current tugged at Daniel's legs, pulling him deeper into the black water. He made no effort to resist. Above him, the amber glow returned in muted pulses, revealing the chamber's curved walls lined with fogged plexiglass. But Daniels no longer saw his own reflection, only thousands of eyes drifting just out of reach, watching. Below him, the pool's depths rippled. Something stirred in the liquid darkness. Shapes too slow to be fish, too graceful to be human. They glided beneath the glass, elongated limbs, faint silhouettes of bodies. And each time their forms passed, the watchers pressed their faces more eagerly against the stainless surface. Daniels felt their yearning as a weight in his chest. And then he saw it. A ladder, its rungs disappearing into the viscous blackness. Its metal rails were slick with oil, etched with long-forgotten names in jagged handwriting. Kenny, Watts, Daniels. He reached for the highest rung within his grasp. Cold metal bit into his palm. He climbed, each rung lifting his head closer to the amber light. The watchers receded, giving him space. When his shoulders cleared the surface, the chamber around him had shifted again. The pulsing lamp now hung directly overhead, flickering with a staccato rhythm. The walls were scratched with messages in every language. You never left. We remember your voice. Tell them we're here. Daniels hauled himself up onto a narrow metal catwalk that circled the pool. Beneath his boots, the grated flooring resonated with the hum of unseen machinery. He followed the catwalk's curve until it ended at a hollow doorway framed in rust. Beyond lay another corridor, its walls dripping with condensation that pooled into tiny rivulets. Daniels flicked his flashlight on. The beam revealed rows of locked cabinets, each marked with a different badge number. His own badge number was etched onto one drawer, handle turned outward. He swallowed, pried it open, and inside found a single cassette tape labeled in his handwriting. Dispatch. Night shift log, February 18th, 25. His fingers trembled as he removed the tape. From speakers embedded in the walls, the faint hiss of static swelled into recognizable voices. Dispatch chatter from that same night, but distorted, overlapped, playback speeding and slowing, until the snippets became a mournful refrain of his own name. He held the tape out, watching it spin slowly in his hand. Then, almost imperceptibly, the tape began to unwind on its own, strands of ribbon floating to the floor like a dark mist. Daniels stepped back, heart thudding. The corridor ended at a set of double doors marked simply, "Re-entry." His breath caught as the doors parted soundlessly. Beyond was the station lobby, identical to the first time he'd seen it, yet bathed in the pulsing amber glow. The pumps outside the windows were whirling, their nozzles writhing like tentacles. He crossed the threshold. Inside, at the service counter, stood a lone figure. His partner, Sam, turned away. Sam's shoulders jerked, as though he had heard Daniels enter. He lifted one gloved hand toward the floor, and Daniels looked down to see the cassette ribbon curling at Sam's feet. Daniels whispered, "Sam?" But the figure didn't turn. Instead, he stepped forward, looping the ribbon around his wrist like a taut cord. Daniels raised his rifle, voice breaking. "Don't come closer." Sam's figure paused, head tilted, and in the wavering light Daniels saw that Sam's uniform bore no name tag, only a glinting badge identical to his own. The figure inhaled, and though no mouth moved, Daniels heard a faint, distorted echo of his own voice. "Welcome home, Officer Daniels." A single station light overhead snapped off. In the sudden pitch dark, Daniels felt Sam's presence fill the space beside him, offered not as comfort, but as a warning. Daniels squeezed the rifle's grip, but the weapon fell from his hand, ineffectual in this realm of shadows. When the lights snapped back on, Sam was gone. The lobby was empty, save for the service counter piled high with those same crumpled bulletins. Missing persons reports, patrol logs, hospital discharge papers, all stamped unanswered. On the floor lay the cassette tape, its ribbon fully unwound, spelling a single message on the linoleum in dark, looping letters. "I am here." Daniels swallowed hard. He realized then that the station would never let him go. Not tonight, not ever. Somewhere behind him, the double doors to the lot clicked open, revealing the starless sky beyond. He took one step forward, then another, drawn toward the whisper of distant static. At the threshold, he paused. Ahead lay the dark expanse of the lot. Empty pumps, cracked asphalt, the promise of freedom. Behind lay the amber-lit lobby, brimming with voices and watchers, forever calling his name. He closed his eyes and in the silence felt every unanswered call echo through his bones. Daniels stepped away from the threshold as the door sealed itself behind him with a metallic groan, the lobby's amber glow swallowing him whole. He realized, in that instant, that he no longer felt the weight of his own uniform or the chill of the night air on his skin, only the relentless thrum of the station's heartbeat, pulsing through every corridor, every shadowed corner. The pumps outside were silent now, their tentacle nozzles still as carved statues. Beyond the glass, the lot lay empty, a pool of broken stars suspended in a black sky. He turned back into the lobby, boots clicking on the tile floor, each echo a summons. The missing persons bulletins fluttered in an unseen breeze, their corners lifting and settling like pages turning in a book that would never end. Daniels crossed to the counter, fingertips brushing the edge of the service register, cold, inert, a relic of the world he had left behind. He slid around the counter and found the exit to the back rooms ajar, as though the station itself beckoned him deeper. Inside, the narrow service corridor stretched away into shadow, walls lined with dark wood doors bearing no labels. A single bare bulb overhead flickered, casting long, quivering beams that danced at Daniel's feet. He advanced, senses taut. Every hair on his neck stood to attention. Somewhere, ahead, a low groan resonated, a sound like steel twisting under impossible pressure. He cocked his head, listening, the rifle now heavy but familiar in his hands. He paused before the first door on the right. It was cracked open by an inch, and through the gap spilled a ribbon of pale light, too pure to be electric. Daniels pressed his palm to the door frame, feeling warmth seep into his glove. He nudged the door. It swung inward easily. Beyond lay an office, walls stacked with filing cabinets and desks piled high with aged paperwork. The pale light emanated from a single lamp on a round table in the room's center, its glow focused on a leather-bound ledger lying open. The pages fluttered as though stirred by a phantom breeze, revealing column after column of names, each annotated with dates and cryptic symbols. At the far end of the ledger, scrawled in a hurried hand, was a new entry. Daniels, Aaron, June 20th, 2025. Initiated his heart, froze. He sank onto the edge of a desk, rifling through the pages. He found other entries, past victims he'd encountered on routine patrols, faces he'd passed by at the gas station, the old woman on Maple Street. All dates corresponded to moments when someone had called him by name. His own name, etched here as the latest in a lineage he hadn't known existed, left him reeling. The lamp's glow intensified, and the room's shadows recoiled. The ledger snapped shut with a crack that resonated in his chest. Daniels leapt back as the lamp fell silent, plunging the office into darkness. When his flashlight flickered on, the ledger was gone, and in its place lay a single Polaroid photograph. Daniels standing in the gas station lot at dawn, rifle held limply at his side, eyes vacant. He swallowed, fingertips brushing the photo's icy edge. The back of the snapshot bore one word: inside. He turned, rifle up, to find the office's door closed and locked. No handle, no latch. The walls pressed inward. He leaned against the cool wood, testing every inch for seams. Finally, he found a small panel at knee height, a sliding trap hidden within the wood grain. He pressed, and it opened to reveal a narrow crawl space lined with reflective insulation. A dim light shimmered from its depths. Without hesitation, Daniels dropped to his knees and crawled in. The crawl space narrowed quickly, forcing him to advance on his stomach. The insulation crunched beneath his palms, and every movement scraped against his uniform. He heard distant voices. His own voice, layered and echoing, intoning dispatch codes and plea calls he'd made over the years. The voices overlapped like an old recording played at varying speeds. He edged forward by feel until the space opened into a triangular chamber, the reflective walls magnifying his image a dozen times over. In the center floated a cordless phone, hovering mid-air as if suspended by magnetism. Its screen flickered with a single missed call icon. Daniels reached out, hand trembling. When he touched the phone, the voices coalesced into a single phrase, whispered into his ear from all directions. "Help me find her." He jerked his hand back, phone slipping from his grasp and clattering onto the mirrored floor. The reflections twisted, showing him not himself but Sarah Kenny standing behind him, her eyes wide and imploring. He whirled, but the chamber was empty, only endless reflections of himself staring back, rifles raised, eyes haunted. The mirrored walls began to pulse, warping inward like the hourglass of time itself. Daniels braced himself as the crawlspace constricted. He backed into the reflection of the phone, which glowed now with an amber tint. The message on its screen changed. He scooped up the device. The screen showed a rotating, faceless icon. His thumb hovered over the green button, heart pounding. He pressed it. The line clicked open. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but silence. Then a voice, distant and broken, whispered, "Daniels, are you there?" He recognized it instantly. Sarah's voice, softer than any dispatch chatter, carrying both relief and terror. He swallowed, voice cracking, "Yes, I'm here. Where are you?" She exhaled, a trembling sigh that shuddered through the chamber. I don't know, I can't see, but I hear water and voices. Please, find me." Behind him, the mirrored surfaces rippled, each reflection bending as though reality itself were flexing. Daniels pressed himself against one wall to avoid being swallowed by the distortions. He scanned for an exit, but saw only endless facets of himself and the ghostly reflection of Sarah standing just out of reach. He raised his voice, determined though his hand shook. "Stay where you are, Sarah. I'm coming." The mirrored chamber quivered. The phone buzzed again. A red dot blinked on the phone's screen, pulsing slowly. Daniels swallowed and whispered, "Tell me." The line went dead. In the sudden silence, the mirrored walls began to shift, sliding apart to reveal a narrow hallway beyond. The crawlspace gave way to a sloping corridor, illuminated by alternating stripes of amber and crimson light. As he rose to his feet, the distorted reflection of Sarah appeared at the corridor's end, her form wavering. Daniels pocketed the phone, gun at the ready, and moved forward. With each step, the light stripes converged, and the corridor walls closed in slightly, guiding him toward the figure ahead. His uniform felt heavier, as though the weight of every life he'd ever touched pressed upon his shoulders. The hum of the station's machinery thrummed beneath his boots. He approached the figure and halted just short of outstretched arms. Sarah's face was pale, eyes ringed with fatigue, but when she saw him, she managed a tremulous smile. "Daniels," she whispered. He lowered his rifle. Relief, fierce and burning, coursed through him. He took another step, but Sarah faded like morning mist, leaving only the corridor walls ahead, engraved now with a final message in decaying letters. "This is only the beginning." Daniels exhaled, heart racing. He squared his shoulders, voice steady even as dread coiled in his gut. "All right, I'm here, let's finish this." And with that, he stepped into the crimson light, alone, resolute, and utterly committed to pursuing the darkness to its end. I leaned forward in this cramped patrol car, the dome light off so only dashboard gauges glow dimly. It's 11:47 p.m. on March 9th. I just clocked in, pressed my name into the mic, Unit 4-2 on for shift, and got the standard crackle in reply, the faint, "Copy 4-2. Then came the silence. It's a heavy silence, the kind you feel pressing in on both sides of the road, where even the tap of a raindrop on the roof sounds like thunder. I roll down the window a crack and taste the damp air, smell wet brakes and old pine. Headlights cut through a low mist, hugging the angle of the shoulders. I'm on Old Mill Road, that ribbon of cold asphalt winding past abandoned barns and scrub pines. Radio chatter comes in fits now, a few useless bursts, static that flares and vanishes. Then, nothing. I reach over, thumb the channel switch. All channels are dead, no dispatch, no other units, no call for backup. Just me and the hiss of wet tires. I ease the cruiser forward, headlights sweeping. Every shadow at the tree line catches my eye. Maybe it's deer, maybe it's nothing. At mile marker 7, I spot orange cones scattered across one lane. No lights, no vehicles. I kill the engine, open the door. Midnight air floods in, chill and heavy. Footsteps crunch the gravel shoulder. I squint through the mist. Nothing but the cones, half buried in grass. I step out, hand on holster. I find the cones thrown in chaos, like someone flung them from the road. I stoop to touch one. It's cold, damp. Underneath, the asphalt is scrubbed clean, like someone wiped away tire marks. I scan the ditches. No skid lines, no footprints. Just the occasional scrap of orange plastic fluttering. I drop back into the cruiser, door slams shut. The engine turns over, louder than it should be in the stillness. Radio crackles once. A voice so faint I almost doubt I heard it. 4-2, come home. My heart thuds. That's how my kid used to call me from the other room when she was little. Only I never meant for her to call me like that. I switch channels again. Static stabs my ears. A breath, and exhales over the line. I push the mic. Dispatch, Unit 4-2 requesting status. My voice sounds tall and tight in the cab. Nothing replies. I punch the hazard lights on. They flash into the mist like Morse code. At 11:55, I call cell. Ring, ring, straight to voicemail. Emergency calls only. That's my area. Last tower drops at 11:50. I flip open my notebook, jot down time, location, note radio dead. Protocol says write it down in pen, but the ink smudges on wet pages. The page curls where a drop of water fell. I rub at the blotch, smear my thumb. Unsettling. Headlights catch an old mobile sign, letters missing, OBL, and the station looks like a mausoleum. I pull in. 2 pumps rusted still stand. Windows barred. Every light inside is on. Overhead fluorescence buzzing. I tap the glass. It's locked. No door handle. No car. No sound. I step back and hear a knock. A single rap from behind me, just once. I whip around. Nothing. Wind chimes in the pines. I catch a flicker in my peripheral vision. The back lot. I swing the flashlight beam. There, under a rusted sign, the front tire of an unmarked sedan. I roll out of the cruiser, boots in wet grass. Up close, the tire is spinning. Slowly, the car idles without an engine on, no headlights, no driver. I freeze. Radio hums low, like a dial stuck between frequencies. I back away. The car door clicks. I whirl. The driver's seat is empty but warm, steam rising off the vinyl. The seatbelt clicks undone. I reach for my torch, clack, but it dies. Darkness closes in. My heartbeat echoes, then a whisper, "Lieutenant?" Not mine, the rank for my shift supervisor. I slam the door, engine roaring to life on its own. I jump in, lock doors. The sedan's lights flicker on, rear red glow like eyes. Then both cars vanish into blackness. I look at the clock, 12:03 a.m. I'm sweating. But night air's cold. I wipe my palms on uniform. I tap the mic. Dispatch, status check. Just static. I flick through channels. Try county-wide, city, mutual aid. Dead. I hit the siren lever. Nothing. Lights flash hazards again. The plan is to go to Station 16 3 miles east. 2 units there. Maybe they've got comms. I back onto Mill Road. Tires skid. The mist thickens. It smells like damp earth and something pinched, metallic. That smell follows me as I drive. I pass the billboard. Visit Greenwood Farms, where family grows. Only the paint peels and the smiling family faces grin like skulls in the headlight glare. I glance, but don't look away. At the T intersection, Route 22, there's a lone footprint. It's hulking, size 12 or more, but wet grass hides half of it. I stop, kill lights, no engine, no radio, no phone. I step out. The print is fresh. I snap a photo, hands trembling. My breath churns in foggy clouds. Rain returns in fits, a patter of needles on metal. I scan the asphalt. No other prints, no drag marks. Just that one, leading toward the highway ramp. I climb back in. I check rearview mirror. Nothing but mist. Then I see headlights, dim, orange, far back, coming up fast. I hit hazard lights to warn them. The lights don't slow. They barrel through the cones I left behind, scatter them, then vanish over the embankment. I follow, but the ramp is empty. My pulse races. I'm alone, no one replying. At 12:17 a.m., I decide to go back to base. It'll take 10 minutes. I get on Route 22 West, speed to curb shiver. Twice I catch radio scratch. Ein, then gone. I grip wheel tight. Mind races with what-ifs. At 12:23 a.m., I reach Hillcrest Station. Lights on, doors locked. I press keypad. Assistant Chief Parker, Unit 4-2. Code accepted. Door unlatches. I slip in. Empty. Papers on desk flutter. AC's in office. Door closed. I step toward radio console. The panel reads error. Calls to dispatch offline. On the wall, a whiteboard reads, System test, do not use. I notice a message scrawled below in black marker. They know. My name jumps off the wall in the scrawl, as if drawn by shaky hand. Parker. I leave the station faster than I entered. Rain hammers crown of my cap. I climb into my cruiser, slam the door. Siren test blares, unasked. I hit the kill switch, silent. The backseat radio crackles. We're here. Not my voice. Far too many voices overlapping. Horsemen, women, children crying. Then a calm hush. A whisper. Stay. The engine cuts. I exhale. Darkness grips me as I flick off the dome light. The tape is still rolling, even though the system's off. I reach for the mic. My breath catches, because here, in this dead night, it always is. At 12:27 a.m., I pass the old feed mill. Empty concrete towers silhouetted against a leaden sky. I remember pulling over here last summer. Domestic dispute call. Couple gone by dispatch arrival. Windows open, cups still on the kitchen table. I'd chalked it up to another empty house and gone on my way. But tonight the place grows on me. Light seeps from a single window up top. I tack on my brakes and turn down the gravel approach. The cruiser's tires roar, then whisper. Gravel sprays. I kill the engine. Rain drips from the eaves. I step out. My boots sink into mud as I head toward the window. I duck under the overhang. Sharp wood smell. Rot. The panes cracked. Through the gap I see a rocking chair swaying, though no wind moves. I grip the flashlight, sweep inside. Dust motes hang in the beam. The chair rocks slow, then stops. I hold my breath. Wood creaks behind me. I whirl. Footsteps in mud leading away. I shine the light. Nothing, just tire tracks, faint, leading back onto the road. Inside the cruiser, I shake. I rub my face, focusing on the feel of leather grip on wheel, the warm puddle of coffee in the cup holder. I sip, stale, bitter. A low hum from the dash, radio flickers. I twist the dial, broken voices, laughing, crying, shouting layered. My name stitched through it. Parker, Parker. It crescendos, then cuts to static. The hum lingers under my skin. At 12:34 a.m., I rejoin Route 113. I push a speed to legal limit. Even so, progress feels impossible. Time stretches. I check the clock. It's barely moved. I glance in rearview mirror. No reflection, just night. I flick on the interior light. Nothing appears in the seat beside me. Yet I can almost feel someone watching. The radio crackles again. Help! There. Words clipped. I slam the mic. Dispatch, please respond. Silence. My knuckles whiten on the wheel. I push hazard lights on and off, flash, flash, until I'm dizzy. At 12:40 a.m., I see a lone figure under a road sign. A man in coveralls standing too still. I hit brakes. The cruiser skids. The figure doesn't move. I kill the engine. Press the mic. Unit 4, dash 2 to any unit. Stop in the area of mile marker 9. No answer. I step out, flashlight in hand. Rain drums gloves. The figure faces away, hands at sides. I clear my throat, no reaction. I step closer, 10 feet, closer, 5. I shine the beam. The man stands motionless, head down. Coverall soaked, name tag reading M. Freeman. My stomach flips. That's our IT tech on call. He's supposed to be at dispatch. I tap him on the shoulder. No movement. I grip collar. Cold skin beneath coverall. He tilts his head. It should be James Harlow's face, but features shift like reflection in disturbed water. His mouth opens. No sound, then a whisper. Don't. And he staggers, collapsing in the grass. I catch him. He's lifeless, heavy. No breath, no pulse. I drag him back to the cruiser. Unlock door, drop him in passenger seat. I slam shut, heart thudding. This is against protocol. I check his face in the dim light, eyes open, glassy. I reach for radio, nothing. My hands shake. I buckle him in with seatbelt. The strap snaps like a gunshot in the quiet. I set the emergency flashers and dial dispatch on cell again. No signal. I try the county IT hotline. Rings once, then voicemail. I message Harlow's cell. Call me. No reply. I look to passenger seat, empty, the seatbelt undone. I spin, no one there. Harlow, gone. My breath comes in short bursts. I grip steering wheel. The cruiser's clock ticks to 12:48. 8 more minutes till I reach Station 16. 8 minutes of this. I slam the car into drive. Rain cascades off the hood. Darkness swallows the road. Ahead, 2 sets of headlights emerge, illuminating a police cruiser and an unmarked SUV parked side by side on the shoulder. Blue and amber lights off, doors ajar, no one in sight. I brake, get out. Feet splashing in puddles. I call out, "This is Unit 4-2. Where are you?" Nothing but the wind. I step between the cars. Dash lights glow eerily. Radio consoles in both vehicles dead. The unmarked SUV's passenger door swings shut on its own. I leap back, heart in my throat. From the stillness, I hear a woman's voice, calm and firm. "All units, code 4, false alarm." It's the assistant chief's voice. I freeze. Disregard all calls. Then the voice repeats, "Return to station immediately." Speaker cuts. I reach for my radio. Dead. My chest tightens. Are they real units or shadows? I dash to the cruiser. Jump in, slam door, slam lock. The engine turns over. I hit the lights, working now, and wheel around, tires scraping. I follow the SUV's taillights down the road. They wobble in the mirror, then vanish. I stop, engine idling, the road behind empty. I kill the engine. Listen, only rain. I feel the weight of the night pressing down, my pulse ringing in ears. At 12:56 a.m., I finally roll toward Station 16. I park under the single floodlight out front. Keypad entry, door clicks. Inside, it's deathly quiet. I flick on main lights. Panels illuminate cluster of cubicles, empty. Dispatch consoles dark. I walk through rows of empty chairs, each mic lifeless. My boots echo on tile. On the main desk, a sheet of paper pinned, 24-hour drill. Expect anomalies. Underneath, written in red, it's too late. I don't read further. I turn to leave. As I step into the lobby, I glimpse movement. A silhouette at the far window. I spin, but it's gone when I reach the window. Outside, rain beats the glass. The street lamp flickers. I hear a final crackle in the darkness, then pure silence. I return to my cruiser. Before I leave, I key the mic. "Dispatch, this is Parker." My voice fails. Silence. I exhale. As I drive off, I realize the drill paper wasn't about training. It was a warning. And I'm still here, alive, maybe because I never followed the instruction. Rain hammers the windshield as I press the gas pedal harder, hoping to leave the drill warning, and whatever else lurks behind those station walls farther in my rear view. The wipers struggle to keep pace, each swipe revealing only more darkness. My hands shake, and I clasp the wheel with white-knuckled grips, forcing my mind back to protocol. Record everything, stay on radio, call for backup. But the radio is dead. Backup is a ghost in the mist. All I have is the hum of the engine and the echo of that final message. They'll come back on the line. The road twists into a gentle curve, headlights cutting shallow arcs through the fog. I pass a flickering "Welcome to Pine Hollow" sign. Its letters half burned away. Pine Hollow, once a quiet suburb, now an empty husk after the mill shut down 3 years ago. I know every road here, used to patrol these streets like the back of my hand. Tonight, though, everything feels alien. Even the houses look off. Porches lit, but dark windows reflecting nothing, like mannequins staring back at me. I grip my throat, my breath catches. At mile marker 15 I slow. On the shoulder there's a corpse, no blood, eyes staring glassy at the sky. The rain pools around it. The body seems almost afloat. I kill the engine, listen for dispatch, only static. The body's uniform bears no badge, but the name tag reads Winters. Catherine Winters. Lead dispatcher, my friend. I'm suddenly sick to my stomach, knowing she wouldn't be out here unless something was horribly wrong. I step out, boots sinking into the soft shoulder. The dead woman's stare follows me. I want to call her name, to shake her shoulder, but I don't. I shine the flashlight into her eyes. One flicker of reflected fear, then stillness. No pulse. I step back. My own reflection shimmers in the wet asphalt. I record the time in my notebook, 1:03 a.m., and note position. I phone it in to the chief's emergency line. It rings again. Finally, someone picks up. Unit 4-2? The voice is calm, professional, not Catherine's. I have a 1052 at mile marker 15. Possible deceased dispatcher Winters. There's a pause. Affirmative. Proceed to next protocol. Do not approach body. I nearly laugh. Protocol never prepared me for not approaching my friend's body. Copy that, I manage. I end the call. The line goes dead. A low groan drifts across the road, like metal bending under pressure. I spin toward the forest. Trees bend at impossible angles, branches reaching like fingers. The groan intensifies, joined by whispers. Voices overlapping, urgent, pleading. They echo inside the cruiser door, then through the woodland. I step back, roots shift underfoot. Then I see them. Dozens of footprints pressed into the mud, encircling the body, all leading toward the tree line. Each print too large for a human, deeper than expected, as if dragging weight behind. Heart in my throat, I step forward, flashlight shaking. I count 21 prints, each bigger than the last. They form a spiral inward, converging at Winter's body. Then outward again, vanishing into the gloom. I follow them, one at a time, until I reach the edge of the woods. The undergrowth parts, revealing a narrow path lit by bioluminescent fungus, an unnatural glow guiding me deeper. I hesitate. The fungus pulses faintly, a heartbeat in the dark. I remind myself, this is where the backup rendezvous was set. I was to meet Unit 7-3 and 5-1 here to coordinate response. They never showed. Now, the fungus guides me alone. I step onto the path. Underfoot, splintered glass crunches, mic fragments from headset equipment. I lean down and scoop up a shard, clear plastic mixed with copper wiring, a piece of the county radio headset. How did it get here? I tuck it in my pocket. At the path's end, a clearing opens to a circular clearing rimmed with gravestones. Old, faded names: Harlow, Mendez, Chen, Freeman. Officer Chen's name is etched in worn stone. I stagger back. The grave of Parker's is empty. Center stone is cracked, no name, just the date. Tonight's date, carved freshly. March 9th, 2025. My breath explodes in white plumes. I feel the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing from the surrounding trees. The radio springs to life. Static first, then a voice. Stay with me, Parker. It's calm, familiar, mine, but it cracks mid-word into awful distortion. Bah. The speaker gurgles, then a whisper. They know your name. The broadcast repeats on every channel, overlapping, drowning in itself. I slam my hand on choke kill switch. Silence, my phone buzzes. A message from an unknown number. You never left. The text is time-stamped 1:07 a.m. My location, this very clearing. I drop the phone. It shatters on the stone. The screen cracks, but the message stays lit. You never left. I think I see movement at the edge. Shadowy shapes shifting between headstones. I can't tell if they're real or part of my fraying mind. The wind picks up, roaring through the clearing. Leaves swirl. The fungus glow dims, then vanishes. In the darkness, I hear a single footstep behind me. I turn. No one. Yet my own footsteps tread soft around me, in a perfect echo. I strain to listen, but can't tell which set is mine. Then I realize the echo isn't matching my pace. It's one beat behind, like a heartbeat delayed. I rush to my cruiser, footsteps pounding in syncopation with that unseen pulse. I twist the door handle, locked. My key fob won't unlock. I pound on glass until it cracks, shattering my knuckles. I drop inside, bleeding, engine roaring. I don't look back. As I peel out, headlights illuminate the clearing one last time. On the gravestone, cracked in the center, a name appears, glowing faintly. Parker. My own name. I punch the gas. Tires spin mud. Through the visor, I catch a glimpse of someone standing under the tallest pine, a silhouette waving me back. I floor it. 1:15 a.m. I'm back on Old Mill Road. The radio is silent again. My suit's bloody, boots caked. I swallow bile, taste metal. I reach for the mic. Dispatch, I'm heading to... Nothing. Then a whisper at my ear. You can't leave. I don't respond. The clearing fades in my mirror. But I know it's still there. I know it's waiting. And I know when I finally stop, driving, it will find me again. The road stretches on. A ribbon of asphalt cutting through the trees, but nothing feels familiar anymore. My vision swims with shadows, cast by swaying branches. The rain slows to a drizzle, then stops altogether, leaving behind a hush that presses against my ears. I yank the visor down, wipe the blood from my hand across my sleeve, and glance at the dashboard clock. 1:18 a.m. My knuckles throb. Adrenaline thrums in my veins like an engine at full throttle. Without warning, the silence shatters. The siren button lights up on the console, its small red bulb pulsing. I don't touch it. Instead, the overhead lights flicker, bathing the cab in strobing white. Then, through the windshield, I see a figure standing in the center of the lane, a young woman in a pale dress, soaked dark as wet cloth. Her hair hangs matted across her face. She lifts her head and turns to me. Her eyes, black as the void, lock onto mine. I slam the brakes. The cruiser screeches and fishtails, tires clawing the pavement. Heart pounding, I press the brake pedal to the floor, but something holds me in the seat, an invisible force. The woman steps forward, and I realize the cruiser hasn't moved at all. I try to roll down the window, but the switch is dead. No engine, no radio, no way to call for help. She raises a hand and points. Mile marker 17. My gaze follows her gesture to the roadside. There, half buried in the gravel shoulder, is a single child's toy. A bright red rubber ball, scuffed and cracked. I dig through my glove compartment for gloves, find none. I twist the door handle. It clicks, then refuses. My breathing quickens. The air is thick and unmoving. The woman tilts her head, and I hear her voice drop below any human register. A rasping whisper that seems to come from inside my skull. Find them. I force my eyes back to the marker. I can't not obey. I slip out of the seat, legs unsteady, and step into the road. The woman dissolves into mist behind me. The world tilts on its axis. I crouch for the ball, scoop it up. It's warm, sticky with something I don't want to identify. I stuff it into my coat pocket and stand. Behind me, engine sputters once, then rumbles to life. Lights return. I whirl, half expecting the woman, but there's nothing. Just the cruiser's glow behind me, illuminating the empty trees. I climb back inside, heart racing so loud I worry it will drown out everything else. The ball presses cold against my side. I punch the ignition, engine roars, and I peel away. My speedometer climbs past 60 miles per hour before I realize where I'm headed. The old quarry road off Route 113, a dead end where we used to train for ice rescues. I remember a body once pulled from those freezing waters 6 years ago. They never identified her. They called her Jane Doe, though she wore a nightgown just like the woman I saw. At 1:25 a.m., I turn onto the gravel entrance. Headlights cut through the overgrowth of honeysuckle and ash. The ball pops against my hip with each bump. Gravel splices under the tires. The mist gathers again, thicker than before, swirling around my headlights like smoke. I slow. The path narrows. Trees lean overhead, forming an arch. Faint voices echo between trunks. Laughter, crying, arguments. Snapshots of distant memories that aren't mine. The voices coalesce into a single call. Parker. It warps, speeds up, slows, then drifts away. I ease into the open quarry clearing. Moonlight glints off stagnant water, still and black. The far bank is lined with calla lilies, bright white in the beam. None bloomed here before. None of this made sense. I park at the water's edge. Engine idles. I step out, boots sinking in mud. The quarry is silent now, just the bass note of the idling motor and the drip of water from overhead branches. My breath clouds in the cold. I stoop to the shoreline and peer in. Beneath the surface I see shapes, pale limbs tangled in debris. I shine the flashlight, bodies, dozens of them floating just below the surface, faces turned up toward me, eyes open, mouths agape in silent screams. I stumble back, heart in my throat. The air catches in my lungs. My mind scrambles for protocol. Call for coroner, call for backup. But my radio is dead, my phone is useless, and I'm alone with these drowned figures. I force myself to breathe, then edge forward again. One figure drifts closer to shore, carried by an unseen current. I recognize the uniform, dispatch attire, not Catherine's but someone else's, Alicia Mendez. No pulse, no warmth. I grip the shoreline rock until my knuckles whiten. A ripple disturbs the water behind me. I spin. The pale woman from the road stands at the crest of the bank, framed by the broken tree line. Her mouth moves, though no sound emerges. I find my voice. "Why are you doing this?" She lifts her hands, palms open. Behind me, every body in the quarry shifts. Limbs rising toward the surface as if propelled by a silent wave. I back away, slipping, in mud, but I can't tear my eyes from the scene. The floating bodies float upward, half emerging, arms outstretched in frozen reaches, gasping for air that isn't there. The woman turns and steps into the shallow water. It swirls around her knees. The lights of my cruiser reflect off the water in fractured patterns. I want to flee, but my feet won't move. She advances, and each step sends ripples through the corpse-littered water. She moves with purpose, like she's drawn them here. She stops 5 feet away. The water level rises, ankles then shins, glowing in the beam. She lifts 1 foot, no stain, no decay, and presses it down. I feel the weight in my chest. I realize it's not her moving the bodies, they follow her. She kneels, dips her hand into the water. The bodies drift toward her, as if searching for comfort. I see fear in their faces, pleading, broken. I want to cover my eyes, but I can't look away. A voice crackles behind me. My radio sputters to life with a broadcast. Unit 4-2, do you copy? Report status immediately. It's the chief, calm, clipped. I almost answer, but I know nothing I say will make sense. The voices in the quarry rise in unison. Groans, cries. a chorus of the damned. The woman lifts her hand, and the bodies tilt toward her like weeping children. She raises her face. I finally see her eyes, empty wells reflecting my own terrified gaze. I fall backward, sliding through mud. Sharp stones bite my palms. The ball in my pocket vibrates, as if alive, hot rubber burning through layers of fabric. I yank it out. It pulses in my hand, swelling like a beating heart. I stare at it. On its surface, words are forming. Remember us. I scramble up and sprint back to the cruiser. Rain begins again, large, irregular drops that sting my skin. The ball falls from my grasp, sinking into the water with a soft plop. I reach for the door handle. It clicks open. I dive inside, slam the door, and shred the ignition. Tires spin mud in every direction. I peel away at speed impossible for a patrol car on wet gravel. As I leave the quarry behind, the road narrows again into forested tunnel. The mist returns, hugging the chassis. I speed through the darkness, past the pine-scented air, past the abandoned station, past the feed mill. The forest seems to close behind me, roots twisting into the road, no escape. The ball pulses in the rear view, bright red against the black seat. At 1:42 a.m., I reach the T intersection with the Route 22. I slam on brakes, tires skid, gravel sprays. The mist lifts, revealing a single bloodied footprint on the asphalt, pointed directly down Route 22 West. I drive on, lights blazing, and through the windshield and the strobing glare of my headlights I glimpse the pale woman once more, standing at the crossroads, her arm raised in farewell or invitation. I can't tell which. I accelerate into the black, knowing I'll never outrun what follows. The radio remains silent, but in my helmet-mounted headset I hear it, the crackle of my own voice, urgent and broken. Find them, find them. The night stretches ahead, endless. I keep driving. Rain blurs the perimeter of the windshield as I barrel down Route 22 West, the world reduced to twin streaks of light and unending black. My breath fogs the glass, each exhale a tremor in my chest. The digital clock reads 1:45 a.m., the hour when nightmares find their deepest trench. I jab at the mic, static. The siren switch lights up, pulsating like a warning. I resist. I need silence to think, though thinking feels dangerous. Ahead, the road branches toward the old quarry road and toward the interstate ramp. My hands hover above both. The choice weighs like a noose. I stab left onto the ramp, tires spitting gravel. The mist clears slightly. I see the faded outline of a highway sign. Interstate 80, 2 miles. I press the accelerator. The cruiser vibrates under me. Every jolt reminds me of the bodies underwater, the pale woman's gaze, the cracked gravestone bearing my name. I tuck those memories back into my mind, bury them, for now. At 1:48 a.m., the interstate appears, deserted. Street lamps line the shoulder, each casting a sickly yellow halo. I merge into the slow lane. The blacktop hums under the tires, a low mechanical heartbeat. I flick the wipers. Rain clouds dance on the wet surface. I almost forget the ball in my pocket, but a sudden chill runs up my spine, and I brush my hand over the fabric, feeling the faint thump, like something alive. 5 minutes pass. The radio crackles once, then twice. Code. Blue. The words sputter, break apart, then a name. Reynolds. Officer Reynolds. He's another who disappeared that night. My stomach rolls. I grip the wheel. I want to shut it off, but the voice glitches onward. Find her. Before she... The transmission collapses into static. I press the volume down until only the engine's roar remains. At 1:53 a.m., brake lights flare ahead. I slow. A semi-trailer sits in the lane, hood up, exhaust steam, rising like spectral breath. No hazard lights, no driver. I pull up beside it, heart thumping. I step onto the slick pavement and approach the cab. Steam pulses from the grill. I peer under the hood, no engine, no radiator, just empty darkness. I stumble back. The trailer door creaks open behind me, metal grinding on metal. I pivot, flashlight raised. Inside, darkness. Then a single beam of light from across lanes, my headlights, reveals dozens of feet standing on the trailer floor. Silhouettes, unmoving. I swing the beam. Faces, dispatchers, officers, family members, children, all looking down at me, mouths twisted in silent screams. I back away, heart pounding. I call for backup. My voice cracks. Nothing. I realize the cab door has closed. I turn. The trailer is gone, vanished, as if swallowed by air. In its place, an empty cabbage field under sodium lamps. I blink. The field ripples like heat haze, though it's cold. I step forward onto muddy soil, sucked in with each footfall. I press on, drawn toward the lamps. At 1:56 a.m., I reach the field's center. Floodlights stab downward, illuminating a lone dispatch console on a weathered table. Static buzzes from the speaker. The console hums with power. A sticky note on its side reads, "Press to reconnect." My finger hovers over the button. Every instinct screams not to, but I press. The speaker crackles. "Lieutenant Parker." "Where are you?" It's the chief's voice. I breathe out. I'm in the field. I found your console." His tone goes flat. "Protocol failure. Extraction inbound." I cut the transmission. The console sparks, then dies. The lamps flicker off. I'm alone again, heart hammering. The ground shifts beneath me, soil folding like fabric. The world tilts. I'm airborne, tumbling down a slick embankment. I scramble to catch myself, sliding into a line of small trees. Branches scrape my face. I push up, rain stinging my eyes. I look down. I've slid into a drainage ditch, water rushing past me. I stand and follow the current's edge. The ditch curves under a bridge. My cruiser's headlights frame its underside. Relief floods me. My ride back to reality. I sprint toward it. Under the bridge, the water pools in a shallow basin. My reflection shatters against the swirl. I crouch and peer in. See a sea of faces under the water's surface, eyes gazing up at me from the depths. They press against the underside of the bridge, open-mouthed in silent chorus. I stagger back, heart racing. A hand grabs my boot. I look down, no one there, but in the reflection a pale hand reaches back at me. I kick free, stumble into the open. I bolt for the cruiser. Wind howls through the bridge arches. I yank the door open. No lock stops me. I dive inside. The keys in the ignition, still warm. I turn it and the engine fires. Rearview mirror. I glimpse the pale woman standing at the bridge entrance, watching me, her form wavering. She raises a palm in salute. Then she's gone. Clock reads 2:02 a.m. I floor the pedal. Tires bite the asphalt. The radio crackles. "Stand down, Parker." The words trail off into static. I thumb the volume to 0. All I hear is the engine and my own ragged breathing. The road stretches ahead. Empty, unending. I grip the wheel with trembling hands. And as I race into the black, I know Section 4 doesn't end here. It picks up, relentless, until the final realization, the last image burned into memory, and the final line that breaks the silence. The highway stretches ahead, a dark ribbon fading into the storm-black horizon. My hands tremble on the wheel, blood from my split knuckles streaking the leather. The radio is dead again, but I can still hear the echo of voices in my skull. whispers repeating words I try to forget. At 2:05 a.m., I pass the exit for Ridgeway Road, where 3 patrol cars once responded to a mass disturbance call. Turned out to be kids playing a prank. It feels like a lifetime ago. I grip the wheel tighter. My reflection stares back at me in the rearview mirror, eyes glassy, mouth set in a hard line. I flick on the overhead light just for a second, enough to see the badge on my pocket glowing brass in the dim red glow. I kill the light, pull onto Ridgeway. The pavement is slick, rain-slicked. Pines arch overhead, needles dripping. At mile marker 2, I see another figure. This time, a small child in a raincoat, standing motionless under a highway overpass. I slow, heart pounding. The headlights catch the reflective stripes on the coat, then go out as I kill the engine. I step out, boots squelching in mud, and call softly, "Hey there, you okay?" No answer. I click the flashlight on. The child's face is pale, too pale, eyes sunk deep. Then I realize it's our missing boy from the school bus accident last fall, Kenneth Miles. He's been found alive 3 days ago. But here he stands, wet and shivering, and I feel ice seize my spine. His gaze meets mine. He lifts a hand and points down the road, toward Blackwood Junction, where the old bridge collapsed 20 years ago, trapping 3 workers. Only 1 survived. The rest were lost. Bodies never recovered. Kenneth takes a step forward, then another, until he stands 10 feet away. His mouth moves soundlessly. I hear a faint crackle in the darkness, static like a distant radio. I reach for the mic. My fingers brush it and the radio bursts to life. Find them. Bring them back. It's my voice, hoarse and urgent. It repeats over and over until I shut it off at the panel. Silence crashes around me. The boy disappears, as if swallowed by the night. I spin. Nothing. The mist swirls under the overpass arches. I climb back in, door slamming shut. Engine turns over on its own. I wrench it into gear and head toward Blackwood Junction. The bridge looms ahead, a skeletal frame shrouded in fog, lights long extinguished. I park on the broken pavement, the gap filled in with rubble and weeds. I step out, flashlight cutting through the gloom. At the center of the span there's a fresh footprint in the dust, size 12, pointed at the void. I crouch and shine the beam. The imprint is deep, as if someone dragged something heavy from one side to the other. I follow the track to the edge. Below, the dark river is silent, save for a distant drip. I dare not lean over. I stand, breath misting. From the far end of the bridge, a figure emerges. A man in dispatch uniform, battered and soaked. It's Tobias Freeman. He raises a hand in greeting, slow and deliberate. I force a calm. "You okay?" His face is empty of expression. He tilts his head and I hear static growl, then a whisper. "You never left." His lips part. I step back. He steps forward. I spin and run. Boots pounding on the bridge deck. Eyes stinging with tears I won't let fall. The sound of chase echoes behind me. Footsteps not my own, matching pace. I burst through the rubble section and skid to a stop on solid ground. I glance back. Freeman stands alone on the bridge, arms outstretched. His uniform peels away, revealing ribs and bone. He turns to dust, drifting into the river below. My breath comes in ragged gasps. I reach for the mic. Nothing. The night is silent. The river murmurs below. I realize I've crossed into something irreparable. I turn toward my cruiser, only to see the pale woman at my door. She steps aside, beckoning. I don't hesitate. I climb in, lock the door, and crush the ignition. Tires spin gravel as I roar away. Behind me, bridge and phantom echoes fade in my mirror. 2:13 a.m. The road forks again. I grip the wheel, sweat cooling on my brow. Leave or chase? I choose chase, because I know I'm already lost. The interstate slides beneath me as the rain eases to a whisper. World reduced to dark road and dashboard glow. At 2:15 a.m., I exit onto County Road 47, the little two-lane that curls through cedar groves toward my home. The rain-washed pavement gleams under old street lamps, each pool of light a small island in the black. My heart pounds so loud I'm afraid I'll miss the softer sounds. Static sighing through the dead radio, the soft cry of tires on wet asphalt, the hollow beat of my own breath. I glance at the ball of red rubber in my passenger seat puddle. It's cracked, scuffed, silent now, but I feel its weight in memory. I told myself it was just a toy. I told myself everything I'd seen was tricks of a storm-frayed mind. Yet each mile drives that lie deeper under my skin. At 2:19 a.m., I reach the old iron gate marking my driveway. I kill the engine. Darkness presses in. No porch light, no humming fridge, no soft breathing from inside. My house sits silent, all windows dark. I ease out of the cruiser. Mud drips from my boots as I climb the concrete steps. My fingers fumble the key, turn, click, and the door swings open before I can jab the lock. Inside, the hallway is empty. My flashlight beam strays over framed photos. My wife's smile, my daughter's graduation cap, faces I've protected, faces I'm supposed to save. They're gone. My blood turns to ice. I flick on the living room lamp, couch empty, TV off, toys strewn on the rug. Her favorite doll lay upside down. I scoop it up, heart in my throat. The doll's eyes follow me, chipped paint inside a vacant stare. I cross into the kitchen. Cupboard shut, refrigerator hums. On the counter, a spilled coffee mug, crimson ring staining Formica. My coffee, hours old. I wipe it, but the stain remains. Next to it, a note scrawled in smudged black marker. Lost and never found. My hand trembles as I read. The words echo through the silent house. I drop the doll. It clatters. The plastic head spins. I swallow. My pulse throbs. Through the front window, street lamps cast a distant glow. I strain to see movement. Any sign they might be outside, safe. But there is only empty road. I stumble back to the door, open it. Rain falls again in fine sheets. My wife's car is gone. My daughter's bike is missing. The night swallows their tracks. I step onto the porch. Wind stirs the cedar branches. Leaves whispering. I call out, voice strangled. Amy? Jessie. My words vanish into the downpour. For a moment, only the hiss of rain and the slow drip from the gutter's corner. Then my radio springs to life on the seat of the cruiser. A single muffled transmission, broken by static. Lieutenant Parker, come home. My breath catches. It's my daughter's voice. Soft, trembling. She never used my rank. She called me Dad. Yet I know that cadence, her timid tone on a bad dream's edge. My head snaps toward the road. Through the curtain of rain, I see two figures on the far edge of my yard. One small, one taller, silhouettes drenched and still. They stand where the curb light pools, motionless. I step forward, and the street lamp flickers. The figures vanish. In their place, footprints appear in the soft mud. One small, one adult boot, headed back toward the woods. I follow, boots sinking. Each print is crisp and fresh, pressed into the loam. My flashlight trembles in my grip. The woods loom, black and silent. I pause at the tree line. The footprints stop at a knot of roots. I shine the beam into the darkness. The red ball lies nestled in moss, cracked lines running like veins. I stoop, pick it up. It pulses faintly in my hand, as if alive. Behind me, a soft whisper, "Don't be late." My blood seizes. The world drops away. I spin, nothing but shifting shadows. The rain eases, the wind dies. Silence holds me in its arms. I know, then, that the night never ends. That those I love have stepped beyond the threshold, leaving only whispers and impressions in mud. I turn back to the road, empty, gleaming wet. I walk toward home, ball in hand, footprints behind me swallowed by rain. At 2:22 a.m., the world narrows to a single beam of headlight cutting through the mist. Nothing but wet pavement and the pulsing halo around my cruiser. My arms ache from steering. Every muscle trembles. The rain has stopped, leaving the air sharp and still. I glance at the digital clock. 2:22. The same numbers echoed in every impossible moment tonight. A warning or a promise. I pull onto Cedar Hollow Lane, an unmarked dirt road that winds back toward the old ranger station where my shift began. I remember thinking, back then, that this ride would be routine. Instead, I've chased ghosts for hours, followed footprints into darkness, and heard voices that shouldn't exist. I grip the wheel, knuckles white, and force myself to drive. Halfway down the lane, tire tracks vanish under a thin layer of fallen pine needles. I kill the engine. Silence envelopes me. Complete absence of sound. I step out, raincoat hood pulled low. The mist drifts among the trees, catching in the low branches. The only light is the cruiser's interior, whose dome lamp flickers as if on its last breath. I approach the rear of the cruiser and see, pressed into the tailgate, dozens of small handprints. Tiny smears of mud they shouldn't have left. My daughter's, my wife's, my partner's. They trail down into the muck, then vanish beneath the undergrowth. I follow them into the woods. The forest floor is soft, muffling my steps. Each breath forms a cloud in the still air. The handprints guide me to a fallen log, half covered in moss. I kneel and touch the green dampness. Beneath, carved into the wood, is a single word: Parker. The letters are jagged, as if gouged by desperate nails. My heart hammers in my chest. I press my palm beside the carving. The mud under my fingers swirls unnaturally, then parts, a shape rising from the earth. It's the red rubber ball, cracked and glistening with dew. I pick it up. It pulses warm in my hand, throbbing like a heartbeat. Behind me, a voice, soft, distant, unmistakable. "Dad?" My daughter steps from the mist, drenched, small face tilted upward. Her eyes are empty pools reflecting the moonlight. I stand, heart breaking and soaring all at once. "Jessie?" I choked, question, voice raw. She nods, but her lips don't move. Instead, I hear her voice in my mind. "Stay." I spin, searching for my wife, but the mist parts only to reveal another figure, my partner, uniform stained and eyes hollow. He stands several paces back, hand outstretched. I glance down. His name tag reads CHEN. His wife died last month. He shouldn't be here. They both take a step toward me. I raise the ball, its pulse syncopating with my heartbeat. The forest hushes, waiting. I feel the weight of every missing person, every voice that's called my name tonight. They converge in the space between the wet earth and the brooding trees. They wait. I breathe in the cold air, then exhale, and I realize I never left. I remember the hum like it was yesterday, the low, constant vibration of the district's dispatch console, like an uneasy heartbeat in the dead of night. I'd been on the road for nearly 10 hours, chasing shadows and half-heard radio calls, and the coffee in my thermos had gone lukewarm ages ago. The station clock blinked 2:17 a.m. in harsh red digits. I tapped my mic, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. Then it came, crackling through the speaker. Static, a breath, and the dispatcher's voice, calm but tight. Unit 12, 1066 at mile marker 42. Vehicle running. No plates. Can you respond? I eased my cruiser onto Highway 58. The road stretched before me like an empty promise, broken only by the intermittent glow of street lamps and the white lines reflecting off damp asphalt. My headlights cut a corridor through the night. The radio's hiss receded behind me. At the marker, I spotted the sedan, an old four-door, silver faded to gray, idling like a wounded animal. Engine ticked, doors locked, no one inside. I parked a dozen feet away and killed the engine. The world went quiet. Just the hum of the idling motor and my own breath, shallow in my chest. I stepped out, flashlight in hand. The beam wavered over the hood, the cracked windshield, then the open road behind me. I circled the car, no plates, no signs of a struggle, just a lone, muddy footprint pressed into the shoulder's soft gravel. Too big for me, too precise for chance. I knelt, shining my light into the edge of the tall grass. The track disappeared into shadows. I called it in. Dispatch, Unit 12. One set of prints leads eastbound into the weeds. No driver in sight. Static. Then, copy, Unit 12. Backup en route. I followed the prints, boots sinking into wet earth. The grass stood shoulder high, slick with dew. My flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating droplets like falling stars. Each step echoed. My chest tightened. In front of me, the beam caught on something metallic. An old gas can, dented and rusted, half buried in mud. No label, no hose. Abandoned. I reached for it, the cold metal slick under my glove. As I lifted it, I heard it behind me. A soft thump, like a boot against wood. I spun, heart pounding, flashlight swinging. The trees were still. The only movement was my own ragged breathing, visible in the beam as a ghost of vapor. I backed away, calling for a K9 unit. My radio crackled. Unit 12, confirm K9 request? Affirmative, I said, voice steady even though my hand shook. Suspect may be injured. Footprints lead into heavy brush. Moments later, the K9 truck's high beams cut through the trees. The dog handler, Martinez, unleashed the German Shepherd. The dog hesitated, tail low, then lunged forward. I watched the beam of his collar light pierce the darkness. Then silence. No bark, no sign of a chase. The dog slowed, circling the gas can, sniffing. Then froze, hackles raised. I stepped closer. The dog backed away, growling low. I knelt, shining my light into the grass beside the can. There it was, a single black leather glove, wet, stained. I picked it up by the cuff. It smelled of gasoline and something fouled, iron, old blood, and something else I couldn't name. I called it in. Later, back at the station, the glove sat in evidence with a tag, unidentified, possibly linked to 1066. My partner, Carter, raised an eyebrow. You think it's from the driver, he asked? I shrugged. Could be. Could be someone left it there on purpose. He nodded, then tapped the file on his desk. Mile 42's clear? No prints beyond the one set? Nothing. I shook my head. No signs of struggle, no other artifacts, just that glove. The cold settled in my bones that night, the kind you can't shake with hoodies or heat. I drove home in silence, passing the mile marker as if it were any other sign. Only it wasn't. It was a question flashing in red. Who left that glove and why here at 2 a.m? A week later, I was on dispatch duty. Coffee again gone cold. The night dragged. Tasks blurred. Welfare checks, noise complaints, false alarms. Then came a page. Possible break-in, 5th Street and Elm. Resident hears movement inside. No lights on. Soto and I answered. We pulled up to the bungalow. Craftsman style, overgrown lawn, windows dark. We knocked, no answer, then faint tapping from above. We exchanged glances. I drew my flashlight and gun. Inside, the floorboards were dusty, walls wallpapered in faded floral print. We climbed to the attic. Steps creaked under our weight. The tapping grew rhythmic, deliberate. At the top, the attic hatch was sealed with plywood. The tapping came from behind it. I pried it open, empty, only rafters and cobwebs. But my boot print landed in fresh dust. I looked up. No footprints on the boards above. No sign anyone had been there. A single muddy boot print beneath my own, pressed into a loose floorboard. I followed it to the far wall. Behind a bent nail and loosened plank was a small cache. A journal with pages torn out, a rusted key, and a folded piece of cloth stained dark. I pocketed the cloth. White cotton, streaked brown. Soto leaned in, whispering, "You see that?" I nodded, heart thudding. Whoever was here planned to hide. We booked the items, ran prints, no matches. The tapping stopped. The bungalow cleared, no suspects, just 2 officers, shaken by a sound they couldn't locate and evidence they couldn't explain. Soto quit 2 weeks later. "I can't unhear that tapping," he said. "Like someone breathing just behind the wall." I didn't blame him. Another call came at 2 a.m. Friday. Archer Road, near the old mill. Male subject screaming about something in the woods. I eased my cruiser onto the gravel road. The mill stood silent, its windows dark, vines creeping over the brick facade. Locals claimed squatters and urban legends, none of which I cared for. I was here for a man in distress. I found him at the tree line, mid-30s, jacket soaked, eyes wild. He pointed into the forest. I peered through the trees, nothing but shadows and moonlight. Then a flicker, a lantern beam swinging. I moved forward, boots crunching leaves, radio crackling. The man followed, whispering, "It's calling me," calling my name. I reached the lantern, cold, old-style kerosene. No one around. Footprints converged here, 2 sets, one smaller, one larger. The smaller I recognized, my own boot print from the gas can night. My pulse spiked. "Sir, you okay?" I called. No answer. He steadied the lantern, light dancing on tree trunks. Then it snuffed out. Darkness swallowed me. My radio sputtered, static, then the dispatcher. "Unit 12, come in." I keyed the mic. "Here, There's no one here, just trees." I turned. The man was gone. Only footprints remained, one set leading back to my car, one trailing deeper into the woods. I followed mine. At the cruiser, the passenger door was ajar. Inside, on the seat, lay that same wet glove. No suitcases, no driver, just the glove. I picked it up, voice tight on the radio. "Dispatch. Evidence needs pickup." Again. The night was empty as I drove away. No lights in the mill, no footprints beyond those forests, no answers. Only that glove, heavy in my hand, and the echo of a voice calling my name. My nights after that blurred into a haze of static and unease. I'd lie awake in my apartment, the glove sitting on the bathroom counter like a dark promise. It never felt far from me. I'd wake in a sweat, convinced I heard my name whispered over the radio. Soft, urgent, just on the edge of hearing. Sometimes I'd raise a hand, as if to answer, and the silence would press in until I could only lie there and listen to my own heartbeat. The next call came on a Tuesday. I was halfway through my shift, coffee cold again in its thermos, when the radio crackled to life. "Unit 12, we have a welfare check. Elderly resident, Oakwood Drive. Reports of knocking inside her locked house." I glanced at the clock, 1:03 a.m. I grabbed my coat and slid into the driver's seat. Oakwood Drive was a row of tidy mid-century homes, trimmed hedges that rose like silent sentinels. At number 17, every light was on. Hallway, living room, bedroom, and yet, when I knocked, there was no answer. The front door was latched. I announced myself, Riverside P.D. Welfare Check. My voice sounded hollow in the heavy air. I circled to the side entrance. The kitchen window blinds were cracked, just enough to peer through. The kettle on the stove was boiling, steam curling toward the vent. No figure in sight. I pulled the side door handle. It was locked, too. I radioed in. Dispatch. No answer. House is empty, but every light's on. Stove's on, kettle's gone cold. Possible occupant missing. By the time backup arrived, the house was completely dark. I watched the lights flick off one by one, as though someone, or something, had wandered through, turning them off. The stove clicked, and then silence. We pried a window open, slipped in. The living room was neat as always. Framed photos of the resident with her late husband, a china teapot on a lace doily, a small wooden rocking chair by the fireplace. Nothing disturbed, but every chair in the house was facing the center of the room, as if someone had gathered an audience. I felt the weight of unseen eyes. My flashlight beam danced over the chairs, landing on footprints pressed into the dust on the hardwood floor. 2 sets, one adult, one smaller, like a child's. I frowned. The resident had no children, no record. I followed the larger prints toward the back door. They stopped at the threshold. I shone my light past the glass. Dew on the grass. A rose bush trimmed in neat lines. No sign of footprints in the yard. Yet the pattern in the floor suggested someone had stood there, watching. I stepped back, and the lights came on suddenly. Overhead, behind me, in the kitchen. The fluorescent glow buzzed. My heart jumped. I swung the light around. Cabinet doors were open, a cracked egg on the counter. Yolk dried like amber glass. I called it in. Dispatch, units. Possible entry from inside. Lights on, stove off, egg on counter. No resident, no forced entry. The forensics team arrived and took samples, but they found nothing conclusive. No prints beyond those 2 sets. No DNA. The resident, Mrs. Callahan, returned later that morning confused. She'd gone for groceries, she said, and everything had been normal. We showed her the photos, the chairs, the egg. She frowned. I leave for 10 minutes, she told me softly. I didn't leave the stove on when I left. Her voice trembled. A week after that, I started to dread the radio. Every chirp felt like a threat. Back at dispatch, I'd hesitate before answering, as if bracing for a whisper. The station layout had a small viewing window into the interrogation rooms, back when I'd spent time there years ago. I stared through that glass and felt that same ill-defined chill. Now, late at night, I swore I saw a ripple in the reflection behind me, as if someone stood just out of sight. One night, I slipped back to the station after a call and found the interview room lights on. Room 3 this time, a small cell for low-risk suspects. No one was inside. The console equipment hummed, tape rolling. I froze in the doorway. The audio playback was live. Faint breaths, distant footsteps. I stepped inside. The speaker crackled. In a voice identical to my own, I heard, "I can't get out." And then the sound cut. The tape continued static. I hit stop. The lights flickered, then blinked out. I stumbled back into the hallway and called Carter. He met me at the door with his flashlight drawn. "You hearing things?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. Just the tape. We logged it as equipment fault, but I didn't trust that explanation. I felt watched, even in the empty hallways. Then came the night of the dispatcher's breakdown. I was on patrol outside the station when the radio went silent. I clicked the mic. "Dispatch? Dispatch, you copy?" No reply. I parked under a streetlight and jogged inside. The console was empty, chair pushed back, coffee spilled on the floor, cold grounds in a wet ring. The room smelled of something acrid, like burnt rubber. Papers strewn across the desk, and on a scrap, scrawled with trembling handwriting, were my badge number and the words, "It calls us all." I snapped a photo with my phone and called my sergeant. He arrived within minutes, face pale under the harsh lights. He ordered a sweep, then shut the console down, locked the door, and sent me home. He never mentioned the note again. I got home at dawn, exhausted. On the kitchen table was a takeaway coffee cup, my favorite blend, steam curling from its lid. I don't remember leaving it there. I stared at it until the sun rose, then poured it out. It smelled like gasoline. My sergeant placed me on light duty after that. No night shifts, no dispatch. I monitored desk calls for a week, but the radio felt like a trap. I heard my name in every static burst. I heard footsteps behind my office door, even when no one knocked. Suicidal ideation messages in suspects' voices that I isolated in playback, unintelligible at first, then clear. "Help me, help me." But no cases matched. Carter visited me after hours once, carrying a brown paper bag with donuts. He looked at my apartment. The glove and evidence bag open on the coffee table, the photograph of the note pinned to the fridge, and on the couch, a lone, muddy boot print on the cushion. He stood silent, breathing hard. "Dude," he said finally, "this is fucked." He left the donuts and walked out. By my third week off duty, I couldn't sleep. I'd lie in bed, eyes open, replaying calls in my head. The radio whisper, the tapping, the footsteps. I started to see shapes at the edge of my vision. A silhouette in the hall, a figure in the doorway when I entered a room. I'd turn on every light, pace the apartment until my legs ached, then collapse on the floor and count the ceiling tiles. I decided to go back to the station. If I could just hear something concrete, voice logs, equipment readings, maybe I could prove I wasn't losing it. I asked my sergeant for access. He frowned, hesitated, then handed me the key to the dispatch office. "Be quick," he said. Inside, I found the consoles powered down, monitors blank. I plugged in a hard drive I carried, backup audio logs I'd been saving. The system hummed to life. I loaded the files from that night at the Shell station, the one with the glove. I pushed play. There was the hum of the idling engine. My own voice. "Unit 12, Prince lead east, need K9. Then footsteps crunching grass, then silence, then a soft exhale like someone standing right beside the mic. I leaned in, the exhale repeated. This time a faint whisper. "Why did you leave me?" The voice was neither male nor female, old nor young, just hollow, echoing. I hit pause. Through the drive across the room, it smashed against the wall, sparks flying from the console. The lights flickered, and the monitors glowed with another feed. The camera pointed at the hallway behind me. I hadn't turned it on. On the screen, I saw a figure standing at the threshold. Slender, dark, features obscured by shadow. It lifted a hand, as if to wave, then vanished. I ran from the room, dizzy, tripping over my own boots. I slammed the door behind me and heard a crack, like wood splitting. I didn't look back. I barreled through the station and out into the parking lot. The air was cool, damp. I gasped it in. I checked my phone. No signal. I ran to my cruiser, doors locked, and flopped into the driver's seat. The engine wouldn't start. I turned the key again and again, radio hissing in the dark. Then the glove appeared on the passenger seat, black leather, wet. How it got there, I don't know. I reached across, picked it up. My reflection in the window, hollow-eyed, sweat on my brow. I pressed the glove to my chest. The radio crackled on its own, static, then a whisper. "Come back." I jolted. The glove slipped from my fingers and fell onto the console with a soft thud. The engine roared to life. The radio died. The glove lay there, motionless, as if it had never moved. I never returned to that station again. They closed the dispatch office for renovations, sealed the room where I played that audio file. They told me it was all faulty wiring, equipment glitches. They said stress can do that to a person. I accepted a transfer to the traffic division, day shifts only. I stopped checking the mail for court summons or psychiatric evaluations. I took daytime calls, fender benders, noise complaints, lost pets. Simple, mundane. I thought it would save me. But at dusk, when the oranges and purples glaze the sky, I catch a tremor in my mind, a crackle at the edge of consciousness. I look over my shoulder, expecting to see that figure in the window. Then I hear it, soft, indistinct, but unmistakable. My call sign, spoken in a voice that isn't mine, like a memory I never lived. And I realize, as the city hums around me, that some signals never die. They linger beneath the surface, waiting for the night to fall, for the static to clear, for a familiar voice to say, "Unit 12, come in." The dawn light filtered through the high office windows, pale and indifferent, as I sank into the swivel chair behind my traffic desk. My coat still bore the faint scent of stale gasoline and old coffee. I glanced at the clock, 6:12 a.m. The city was waking. Horns, engines, the distant hum of the freeway, all mundane, all safe, or so I told myself. But beneath the hum, I could still hear it, that static whisper, barely there, like a sliver of memory wound tight around my skull. Unit 12. Come in. I shook my head, trying to clear the remnants of sleep and lingering dread. Daylight duty was supposed to be therapy. Fewer shadows. Fewer things moving just out of sight. I filed my paperwork. Midday road closures, parking violations, a stalled tour bus on Main. The glove sat in a sealed evidence locker. Out of sight, out of mind. I tipped my coffee and forced it down, scalding my tongue. Mid-morning found me directing traffic at the intersection of Elm and Riverside Way. A routine assignment. Businessmen in suits, school buses, delivery vans. No homes dark with empty rooms. No footprints in mud. Just asphalt and painted lines. I waved my white-gloved hand, left, then right, then left again, and felt the full weight of my badge heavy on my belt. The radio crackled. Unit 12, please respond. Code 4 on that construction site accident. Minor injury reported. My heart stuttered. Code 4 meant everything was under control. But it rang false. I flicked my wrist, turning the mic on. Unit 12 copy, I said, voice measured. We've got a worker struck by falling scaffolding at 8th and Laurel. Send aid. I signaled to a nearby paramedic unit and jogged across the street. A half-built apartment block stood skeletal against the sky. Steel girders, plywood planks, a tangle of orange safety netting. Workers in hard hats milled around, sheepish, anxious. A young man lay on a tarp, groaning. A beam had shifted and clipped his shoulder. I knelt beside him. "You with us?" I asked. He blinked, sweat on his brow. "Yeah, I'm okay," he panted. "Just got the wind knocked out. My head, my radio, it's buzzing." I frowned. Buzzing? How? He reached to the radio clipped to his belt, same model we used at the station. I looked down. Static hissed from his unit. The mic light blinked, though no one was transmitting. I picked it up. The hiss resolved into a soft voice, playing on a loop. Why did you leave me? My blood turned ice. I dropped the radio. The worker's eyes widened. I didn't even switch it on, he said. I scrambled to my feet. Paramedics are here. I'll file the report. My teeth ground together. I backed away. The accidental call turned routine. I left the scaffolding buzzing and the worker distracted. All through lunch, I heard it in my mind. Why did you leave me? Why did you leave me? I forced myself to eat a sandwich, soggy with mustard, an apple bruised from my pocket, a bottled water. Then back to the station for roll call. Sergeant Patel stood at the front, posture stiff, lips pressed. Unit 12, step forward, he said, after calling names. I approached. How's the transition? He asked quietly, voice low. Fine, I said. Day shifts are quiet. He nodded. Then his expression flickered. He leaned close. Look, I know the station's still under wraps. Dispatch office closed. We're reassigning your old consoles to evidence storage, but... He paused. You don't have to stay here if you don't want to. Let me know. I exhaled. I appreciate it, Sarge. I'm good. He studied me, then barked the last few orders. Roll call dispersed. I lingered, watching officers don gear for patrol, K-9 units preparing. The station corridors hummed with routine, lockers slamming, boots on tile, printers spooling reports. I turned and headed for the evidence room. The glove was there, sealed in plexiglass, a tag curled inside. Exhibit 12A, unidentified. Subject to further analysis. I placed a hand on the glass. The leather looked supple, as though waiting for a hand to slip back inside. I tore my gaze away. Back at my desk, computer alert. A secure message from forensics. The glove's lab report was ready. I opened the PDF, fiber analysis, DNA swabs, chemical residue. No human DNA, no environmental contaminants. Only traces of kerosene, old blood proteins too degraded to type, and something else. A microcrystalline residue matching the composition of speaker diaphragm dust. In layman's terms, the glove had been inside a radio speaker. I leaned back, heart thudding. They'd found evidence it spent time in the dispatch console. Not in the field, on me, in the station. My breath caught. The whisper, the crackle in my own station feed. It wasn't in the woods. It was in my workplace, my sanctum. The station that had swallowed my sleep and sanity. My phone buzzed. A text from Carter. Check your mailbox. Urgent. I walked to the bullpen mail shelf. An unmarked manila envelope protruded. My name handwritten in black ink. No return address. I slid it out, tore it open. Inside, a single sheet of pale paper, folded once. In neat block letters, "You left me behind, come back." My fingers trembled. I dropped the note. It fluttered to the floor. I didn't want to reach for it, but I did. It carried a faint scent, like old paper, coffee grounds, and something fouled I couldn't name. I shoved it in my pocket and fled my desk. In the hallway, I passed room 7, the old interrogation room now repurposed as evidence storage. The door was closed, padlocked, but I heard it, faint behind the concrete wall. A soft vibration in the glass block window. A whisper, "Unit 12, come in." My skin crawled. I raced to the stairwell, one flight down, another to the parking garage. The elevator's doors opened with a ding. Inside, the bulbs flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. I pressed the ground floor. The gloves on my hands chilled instantly, as though the air had turned to ice. The doors slid open onto the garage. My cruiser sat under the strip light, haloed in pale yellow. I crossed the floor. My boots echoed. In the driver's seat lay a crisp new pack of evidence bags. On top, that same glove, folded neatly. I paused, heart hammering. I reached out. The glove's leather looked unworn here. No dirt, no dew, no mud. It was perfect, pristine, ready for use. A voice whispered through the garage, "Why did you leave me behind?" My head snapped up, no one in sight. The voice came again, low, over my shoulder. I turned, empty space. The glove lay there like a trap. I realized then it never wanted me to leave. It had followed me from the station, through the night calls, into my day shifts, into every whisper of static and every heartbeat. It was woven into the walls, the equipment, the very circuits of my world. I backed away, hands raised. I didn't understand, but I knew one thing: there was no escaping. It was already beside me, speaking my call sign in that too familiar tone. I grabbed the glove and threw it across the garage. It landed by the tire with a soft thud. The radio in my cruiser crackled to life. Static, then a single word: home. I turned toward the exit, only to find the stairwell door closed, locked. No elevator. The overhead lights blinked out, plunging the garage into half-darkness. I stumbled forward, pounding on the door. Nothing. In the darkness, the glove's outline gleamed faintly on the floor. I heard that voice again, closer now, as if right behind my ear. "Unit 12, come in." I swallowed, mouth dry. My hand brushed the concrete wall, seeking any exit. The crackle in my skull matched the static on the radio. My blood ran cold. And I understood, with unbearable clarity, that wherever I went, day shift or night, station or street, light or dark, it would always find me. Because it wasn't just a whisper in the wires, or a shade behind the glass. It was part of me now, woven into my signal, haunting every transmission. And as the glove lay there, silent and still, I realized I had only one choice left: answer the call. I pressed my back against the concrete wall, heart hammering so loud I was sure the entire garage could hear it. The emergency lights overhead sputtered, casting everything in sickly orange pulses. My breath came in short gasps. The glove lay inert by the tire, but I felt it in my mind, in the screech of my pulse. The static whisper, a voice I'd tried so long to ignore, wove through the blackout hum, repeating my call sign, coaxing me forward. I tested the stairwell door again. Locked. The elevator panel was dark, dead wires beneath my fingertips. There was no cell signal, no chance of using my phone. I was trapped. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe there was an access panel, maybe an old service exit. There was one other door, a thick steel-framed door marked Maintenance, out near the far end of the garage. I sprinted toward it, boots sliding on oil-slick concrete. As I ran, the voice followed me. No longer static, crystal clear, like someone breathing into my ear. "Unit 12, come in." I slammed my shoulder into the door. It groaned, but held. I pounded again. My hand slipped, catching on a metal handle. It turned. The door opened a crack. I pressed my shoulder through and nearly tumbled into darkness. Inside was a narrow corridor lit by a single bare bulb swinging on a frayed wire. The bulb's light flickered and sank, leaving me in near complete black, until it died with a pop, plunging me into darkness so complete it felt alive. I fumbled for my flashlight, lit it, and the beam cut a tunnel through the black. The corridor walls were stained, concrete chipped, with pipes running along the ceiling. Damp air smelled of rust and something fouled, like blood on cement. I followed the corridor, the flashlight jarred in my hand. The voice was urgent now, echoing off the concrete. "Come in, Unit 12. My chest tightened. I shone the light ahead. A turn in the hallway led to a stairwell going up. and at its base was another door, painted dark green, peeling. A small window, wire mesh embedded in the glass, offered a glimpse of fluorescent light beyond. I climbed the steps two at a time, adrenaline burning my calves. At the top, I heard muffled voices, normal voices, female laughter, a TV playing. Confusion filled me. I'd left the station, the offices, but this sounded like home. I burst through the door into my own apartment building's basement laundry room. The fluorescent lights flickered, too bright after the garage's dim glow. Washing machines lined the walls, humming. A folding table sat against the far wall, and under it, a pair of my work boots, still muddy from the garage. I stood stock still. My flashlight's beam settled on the boots. They were next to a small pile of personal items. My keys, wallet, badge, and the faded photograph of my family I kept in my desk drawer. Someone had taken my apartment key and left it here. My pulse stuttered. I swallowed. Then I heard it again, from somewhere deeper in the maze of pipes. Unit 12. Come home. Home. The word echoed. I wrenched my flashlight to the right. A door marked stairs stood ajar, yellow light spilling underneath. I pushed through into the stairwell, climbed 2 flights, heart shrieking. On the landing, that same hush filled the air. But now I recognized the pattern. The hush before a 911 call, the pause before a suspect's scream, the pregnant silence of night shifts. It followed me even here. I reached the top and turned the corner into the hallway. My apartment door was there, exactly where it should be, except the nameplate was scratched away. No numbers, just a blank brass rectangle. My hand trembled as I raised my flashlight. The door was slightly open. Inside, pale yellow light glowed. I took a breath and pushed inside. The apartment was empty, silent. The coffee table held the plastic lid of my discarded coffee cup, stains dried on the vinyl, next to a stack of unopened mail. My side of the couch had Mr. Footprints, wet, muddy, as though someone had walked right up and surveyed the room. A chair was tipped over, my chair, and on the backrest hung my jacket, still damp from the garage rain. Every light switch I flicked brought only silence. No hum of the fridge, no ticking of the clock radio. The place felt dead, unnaturally so. I crept forward, flashlight dancing over the furniture. I reached the coffee table. The stack of mail lay on its side, as though brushed. I bent to pick up the top envelope. It was from Carter. I tore it open, expecting a text transcript, a warning, anything. Instead, the paper inside was blank, except for a single line typed at the bottom. I've been waiting. My blood turned to ice. I stifled a breath. The voice came again, low, as if right behind me. Unit 12, welcome home. I spun. The flashlight beam landed on the far wall, where in my family portrait there should have been a photograph of my daughter's bright smile. I'd taken it down last week to scan and upload it to the share drive, and now the frame was empty. The reflection in the glass of the picture frame caught my eye. Not the couch behind me, but a dark shape standing in the center of the room. A tall silhouette, shoulders slumped, head tilted. I flicked the beam to that spot. Nothing. The beam shivered. I backed up until I felt the wall at my back. The voice whispered, so soft I almost missed it. You left me. My pulse thundered, mind a jumble of fear and disbelief. The apartment seemed to pulse with the same oppressive energy as Room 7. The dispatch console, the old Millwoods, the bungalow, every place I'd ever heard it calling. It was the common thread, the static in the mic, the ripple in the glass, the tap in the attic. And now it had brought me here, to the one place I considered sanctuary. It would not let me go. I closed my eyes, fighting the impulse to run, to scream, to collapse. I let the darkness seep in behind my eyelids. When I opened them again, everything was sharper. The scuff on the hardwood, the tear in my jacket sleeve, the faint residue of kerosene in the air. One last time, the voice came, so clear it was deafening. "Unit 12, come in." I realized I could not answer. I would never be free of the call, the whisper, the thing that haunted every channel of my life. It had crossed every barrier, station walls, dispatch consoles, interrogation rooms, my own home, to demand its reply. And so I stood there, alone, in the empty apartment I once called home, listening to my own call sign echo in the quiet, knowing that the barrier between signal and silence had dissolved forever.